Nimue the Ninny added permitted term smack on the butt. So I guess we can say smack on the. Oh, we're live. Hi. Hello, fellow humanoids, and welcome back to the Versaplane, where you can now say smack on the butt in the chat.
Because apparently it wasn't allowed before.
What if this was a culinary podcast where we were talking about like making pork roast or making pork?
Smack on the butt.
Oh, it's a
I
bakery
mean,
show. Okay.
to be fair, you also wouldn't be able to talk about if it's a bakery show where you're making pickle bread. Because
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if you're allowed to talk about dildo.
Right, exactly. See, they don't know. They don't know. What if this were a sporting goods podcast and we were trying to talk about that store where we get our equipment? Dick's.
I go to Lululemon.
What what do
I'm
you
like,
get?
what does Lululemon have to do with this?
Now this was a
I'm
joke.
sorry, but you said sporting goods store and then said Lululemon, and I just wanted to go, when did Lululemon start selling firearms?
No, firearms is what Jasper had before he farted himself to death.
That's Camilla's. Not Camilla's. Oh, fucking, what is it?
Cabela's.
Oh, Cabela's. That's it. That's where I got my bow.
No, this was
That's
a
where I
joke.
worked for 5 years.
This was a joke from when I was in high school, but a kid that I knew said this was actually a couple of stores that were side by side in one of our shopping districts. But he said, "What do you get when you cross a Dick's Sporting Goods with a Circuit City,
A BJ's?
a Hitachi,
I
a
mean,
bad depending, it might be a bad dragon."
You know, I really want to buy a motorcycle, but I also really want an electric keyboard, and I don't want to go to 2 stores. Yamaha, guys, got your back.
That's right. That's right.
Stores that sell 2 wildly different things is always weird to me.
I mean, look
One,
at Hitachi. They make like excavation equipment.
They
and
do?
personal massagers.
oh, I thought you were calling the personal massager excavation equipment. I mean, you use
That's
you
a
use
very
it.
different kind of drill.
Yeah, I was gonna say you use it to drill down deep, baby. You gotta remember to keep. You gotta remember to keep it wet. Okay. Anyway,
Yeah, they make TVs. They
mm,
make railway systems. They make digital power, renewable energy, personal massagers.
ooh, a
Well,
solar. Wait, a solar powered dildo?
well, you know about
I'm sure
Michelin
it is.
tires, right?
No. I mean, yes, I know they exist.
They're also the same company that does Michelin stars.
Yep.
They are
Ah,
the same.
I did
It's
not know
actually
that.
has to do with your star rating, has to do with how important or how good your food is to stop for on a road trip.
Ah, that makes sense now.
Likewise, Guinness World Book of Records
Guinness beer.
is in fact Guinness beer because it's
That's funny.
stories to tell around the bar.
Okay.
I didn't know that.
I dig it. I dig it. See, with Michelin stars, my first instinct was to think that the higher the star rating, the more they're saying it's worth a long drive. Like if this restaurant's 100 miles
Yeah,
away, a 5 star it's worth that many miles.
absolutely.
It was.
Oh, see, there we go.
It's worth driving to or worth stopping on a road trip for.
Gotcha. We're stopping if you're passing. Right.
Right.
I like it.
Back in the day when they were trying to get people to travel more with
hmm
vehicles.
When Big Car was trying to get people to travel.
Big car. Big tire, let's be honest here. You only have to
Right.
buy one car for a while.
Well, once upon a time.
I mean, you know what company produces the most wheels, right?
Uh NASA?
Nope. The company that produced the most tires. Sorry.
Hmm. No.
Lego.
Huh,
That makes sense. Yeah,
that's funny.
I like
Hmm.
it. I I
Enough
want
random trivia fun facts where
I want to put it.
my grandmother used to be obsessed with Trivia Pursuit.
Yeah. Well, yeah, one last one then. Do you know who the second largest purchaser of explosives in the United States is?
Me.
Well, the first is the United States military. The second is the Walt Disney Company because they run like three,
Mm.
four fireworks shows every single night at their various parks. It just in
Yeah,
Disney World. Yeah.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Did you? Extra fun fact because Disney. Did you know that the plan to buy out companies such as Fox, 21st Century Fox, and Marvel and Star Wars was
Mm,
actually technically put in place by Walt Disney himself?
I did not.
He has a rigid structure of if an intellectual property or company gets to X size in comparison to Disney's liquid value,
Mm,
then they are to acquiesce said product, intellectual property or company for whatever means by whatever means necessary.
ah, it's a monopoly
Walt
clause.
Disney Walt Disney wrote the rules for a monopoly.
Yeah, yeah. And it's you kind of can see where that sentiment would have come from for him because of the like his career. The reason Mickey Mouse exists was because he lost the rights to his original creation of Oswald.
Hmm.
And so like you can kind of see the seeds of the idea of like if another company gets this big, acquire it and absorb it because he didn't want that sort of thing to ever be able to happen again.
Uh, Walt Disney
Interesting.
also was one of the first people to ever create the concept of a not a company town in a mining aspect, but in a sort of commune aspect, where a corporation owns
Mm,
a large amount of land, and those living on it live there rent free
hmm
because they are employees.
mm-hmm.
And literally was had originally designed Walt Disney World to
Hmm.
span almost half the state of Florida.
Nice. Yeah, well, and I know it had the Reedy Creek Improvement District was its own governmental unit, literally designed so that the Walt Disney Company didn't have to get its plans by other governmental bodies that had their own agendas and whatnot.
Hmm.
I hate to say it, but Walt Disney was ahead of his time for
Oh,
capitalism.
oh yeah, oh, absolutely, yeah. His
Walt Disney was what Jeff Bezos wants to be.
yeah, the whole concept of Epcot, and it's interesting because some of the things so Epcot, the original idea was sort of what um Golden Oaks became because there are or not Golden Oaks, I'm sorry, Celebration. There's a town in Florida called Celebration that is owned by the Walt Disney Company. Um, Parts of it are what Disney originally envisioned Epcot to be because Epcot was supposed to be a community where people actually lived, like civilians would live there. The monorail, that specifically the monorail going through the contemporary resort, was originally envisioned for Epcot. It was supposed to go through this big sort of hub uh, complex at the center of Epcot. Um,
You
but
gotta
and
love
it's
when early capitalists used to think about their consumers too, and now
mhm.
we're in late stage capitalism where all that matters is the money.
We have had that conversation several times, and not to get political, but this will be the little bit of political commentary. But I won't specify like I usually do certain groups. There are certain groups within the government. The government is about making money, at least in this country. The government is so infected with capitalism. It is about making money. But there are certain groups within the government that understand sustainability, and there are other groups within the government that want to strip mine things immediately for instant profit. Walt Disney was the first kind. He was the kind of capitalist who's like, I make the most money when I create a situation that is sustainable so that I can continue making money decade after decade and that people can inherit it and it can produce and make money century after century versus the people who get in there and go, I'm going to make as much as I can at everyone else's expense, which isn't sustainable and makes the system collapse in like 3 years. But yeah, Disney was
Now,
that.
before anyone in the comments in the of the Twitch or YouTube, if this gets uploaded later, go after us. We are not saying that Walt Disney was a good person.
No, that's not.
There are very few people in history who are past who were good people. Everyone has their flaws. Some people were really bad people, but there are also some things that said people did that were not necessarily the worst thing.
Yeah, there's degrees of horrible.
Yeah.
One of the not good, maybe one of the less horrible, but not good.
On a scale from 1 to 10 worst things this person's ever done, this one ranges
Mm.
like 9 or 10.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
7 if he did some other good things. Good things. But
But
anyways, similarly to Walt Disney, Harrison Ford?
you're thinking about the
The
guy
guy who
who
made
no,
invented Ford. No,
no,
what was his name?
Henry Ford. There we go, Henry Ford,
Henry Ford,
T.
thank you.
Ford. Yeah.
It started with an H. Henry Ford created the 40-hour work week.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because he wanted his employees to buy a Ford. He wanted
Right.
his employees to buy his product,
Mm,
take that product out, and go spend more money on the weekends. Go enjoy, basically enjoy their life, because by
right.
putting the money he paid them back out into the economy, that money would come back to him.
Right. Yep. Yep. That's why I
And like,
never have. I've done tax stuff for about 15 years now, and I used to have that sort of that sentiment that is common amongst a certain group of people who will see somebody who doesn't have the best paying job get a big chunk of a tax return and get all upset about it. And I used to be of that mindset because I didn't think it through. But as soon as I thought it through, I realized this person who is getting this big chunk tax return is not of the social status or the socioeconomic status where they're going to squirrel it away, right? The people who get that are the people who are going to turn around and spend it. They're going to go to stores and they're going to buy things. They're going to pay off their debt. They're going to do whatever. They're going to put all of that money back into the economy. It's like the water cycle. It's all getting filtered around and it's all good because when that person, like even people, when a certain group likes to complain about people that are on welfare or unemployment, people that don't work for a living, they're like, oh, that's free money. I'm like, what do you think they're doing with that money? They're not putting it in an offshore account and squirreling it away. They're taking that money and they're spending it at Walmart or they're spending it at Costco or they're spending it at 7-Eleven. They're spending it at places where because they're spending it there, that money is going into the paychecks of the working people that work there. So the money is always going to get cycled back around and end up in the pocket of somebody doing work. So that
and
was when I was
also,
like, oh, I can't really be upset. These people are actually they're helping the economy far more than certain other people getting tax breaks.
welfare and unemployment. It's like, well, these people aren't paying for it. Unemployment, you have to have had a job to apply for, and you
Mm-hmm.
paid taxes into said unemployment.
Yeah,
Unemployment you actually paid for.
it's
I actually know I'm
insurance.
about to
Yeah, it's
literally this week is
insurance.
my last week for it.
Yeah, it's insurance
My
for like
my
you
friend
paid
ran
into
out.
it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You have
It's
an X
base.
amount that you get because of how much you
Mhm.
paid into it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
like, that's actually something that you worked for and paid into as a
Mhm.
basically a pseudo savings account as a fallback.
Right.
Which you
Yeah,
still then
good.
have to pay taxes on.
Yeah. You have to pay taxes on the things you already. It's like when people get Social Security. It's like that money was already taxed, but then depending on how much you get, you still have to pay some taxes on some of it. And it's like, so I'm getting taxed on money that I've already been taxed on.
Well, yeah, anytime money moves in any direction, the government is like, and I'll just take a little bit.
Hmm.
I'll just take a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah. Yep.
You don't need that whole pizza. Let me take a slice.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. That's why
it's
I've.
like that. It's like that college roommate who never pays for any of the food, but always gets some.
I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. Yeah. that's why the one of the things I actually do agree with the concept of is replacing slowly over time, because you can't really do anything widespread quickly without causing a huge problem, but replacing slowly over time the income tax with a transaction tax, a consumption tax, because when you pay taxes on your income right out of your paycheck, your labor is being taxed, which
Right.
is less palatable to me than the idea of when I go to like when if I go to a car dealership and I buy a car, putting the tax on that, because then you're taxing the transaction, you're taxing the exchange of money between one person and another, and that's less offensive, I guess, in my mind, than saying yes, we're going to tax your actual labor. We're going to take a chunk of the money you're being paid. But I guess when you get down to it, it's the same idea because it's still a transaction when you're getting paid by your employer because your employer is giving you money in exchange for your labor in the first place. So
In
it's
those
still.
cases, I would say
Mm,
the income tax goes to the employer because the employer is
mm,
the one paying something. Whereas in if I go to the
mhm.
store and buy if I go to the dealership and buy a car, I'm the one paying for the car, and I'm
Right.
paying taxes on that. So it's the
Mm,
person who is paying their money into something needs to pay a little
mhm,
bit more money in order to make sure that the services, the laws, and everything that happens to make sure that the equality and the equity of said purchase is fair and reasonable.
mhm,
Whereas just being taxed for the fact that I went to work for 40 hours
mhm,
is unacceptable. But at
mhm,
the same time, if you think about it, I use income tax as an explanation for tariffs.
mhm,
As a worker, you are being given money by your employer. The
mhm,
money is transferring over bank accounts instead of overseas transferring over bank accounts, and is going to
mhm.
arrive at you,
Right.
the consumer, the employer. You're the one who has to pay the income tax on it, though. You're the one who
Mhm.
has to pay the tariff.
Right. Yeah.
And I explained that to somebody not that long ago, and their response was, "Well, that's stupid." Like, yeah, it is.
Correct.
It's very
Correct.
stupid.
Yep. Yep. Well, so I was trying to I was trying to conceptualize tax or tariffs one time, and I was like, the way I've had it explained, the way people have tried to justify it or explain it in defense of it, is that it like weirdly it creates equity, and we know how much a certain group hates that word, but it creates equity between two sides of a financial transaction. And I'm like, yeah, but the problem is, it's like saying if I'm a car mechanic and you're a landscaper, and we decide we're going to barter services, and I'm going to fix your car, you're gonna maintain my lawn. But it turns out that the amount of work done on your car is $1,000 worth, and the amount of work done on my landscape is $600 worth. A tariff is me saying no, a tariff is you saying, as the landscaper who's getting less, no, I'm going to charge you more for this service because there's an inequity in the exchange of like the barter. It's literally inflating one side to make the both sides equal. And it's
But it doesn't even work like that because
no,
all of
no,
it because it's quite literally it's not even that. It's the mechanic going, well, our sides are unequal, so I'm going to pay you an extra $400.
right. Yeah, that's it. That's
It's
the
on the side that's receiving the service that has to pay for it and determines it
yeah.
because
Well, no,
we
no, no,
determine
no.
the tariffs.
No, it would be like if I, as the car mechanic, was going it's the side that's deciding I'm going to pay you more, but it's going my side of this equation is going to pay you more, not me personally. My kids are going to pay you more, and the kids are like, what the fuck? And I'm like, well, you play on the lawn, so now you have to pay extra for the lawn to get taken care of because
It's even worse than that because it's more specifically it's me going, um, it's it's deciding that okay, we could go with Jeff whose service costs $800, or we could go
mm,
with Kyle whose service costs $600. But I don't like Kyle, so I'm going to charge my kids an extra $400 to get the Kyle service.
correct. Yep,
It
yep. It's
it's
mar it's
so bad.
And at the same
because
time,
it's encouraging you to go to the other person.
right, and I was just going to say, because of that, it's the same people who worship at the altar of free market capitalism who are literally using financial tactics like this to manipulate the free market. It's not a free market if if you're doing that kind of stuff. If you're making it like less beneficial to go to a less expensive place, then you're altering the landscape of the free market to your own benefit.
Oh,
Hmm.
and the worst part of it is the guy whose service is 600 is unaffected. He
Hmm.
does not care
Yeah, no,
because
because
he's
he'll
gonna
have
sell it to
customers.
someone.
Right? Yeah.
He's gonna have customers.
There's
He's gonna
another.
do his job one way or the other. You're
There's
probably
another.
still gonna pay him.
Yeah, there's another neighborhood like four or 5 miles down the street that doesn't have stupid tariff ideas, and he's like, I got like 14 customers down there that don't do this dumb shit. You guys do whatever you're gonna do. I'm cool down there.
Not just I do the hedges and Jeff doesn't. So I know you're still gonna come to me, sort
Yeah,
of thing.
yeah, exactly. Well,
Hmm.
and the whole thing
Um,
with taxes that I'm so amused when people have such a narrow view of like the benefit of taxes, where they're like, well, if I don't benefit from this, so so I shouldn't have to pay for it. And I'm like, well, major thing one, you can just imagine that all of the money you pay into taxes goes towards the things you do want, because I don't care how much any individual American pays in taxes, it's not as much as any one expenditure. So just look at the expenditure of tax money and find the one you like. Usually it'd be the military, and it's like how many billions of dollars, and it's like, I know you didn't put billions of dollars in, so you can just imagine that every penny you put in taxes went into the military budget, and you can be happy about the money you paid into your taxes. But I'm like, if you've ever if you've ever driven on a road and not paid a toll, you have benefited from taxes. If you've ever gotten a product that was shipped into your town from outside of your town, you benefited from taxes. If you've ever gone to a business that hires and employs public high school graduates, you have benefited from taxes.
if you've ever been to a public insert here, you've benefited
Mhm.
from taxes.
Yeah. If you've ever had to call the police and not pay them to come out and do a report, you've benefited from taxes.
Um, Now that being said, we probably should get to the actual meat and potatoes of this stream, which
Oh,
is not
yeah.
politics, but is D&D. Let's talk about D&D politics, where the currency change between a gold coin and a blood coin.
That's correct. Correct. There's an exchange rate. Now
um,
it changes every 15 minutes though. So if you're going to put in a requisition to exchange gold for you're only going to get the rate at the time that request is processed, not right now.
However, only Eddie knows how to process that math, and he's currently indisposed.
He is disposed what we call Larry's bag of holding.
Yeah, I don't actually know. I don't remember what happened to Eddie. Did he
Uh
go in the bag?
he was at the battle.
He was still around Larry's chest when the battle ended.
Correct.
I very much feel like the post credit scene to that campaign is like the post credit scene to the Dungeons and Dragons movie where that corpse was still sitting up and is like, you got to ask me one more question. Eddie is just sitting in the empty theater with bodies around, and he's like, guys, can I go back to work?
Yeah.
While everyone else disappeared. For
Yeah,
him, it's the reverse of what happened. For you guys, everything went back to normal. For him, everybody just disappeared.
guys, it's been 9 days. I don't know where I'm at.
Uh,
I didn't listen to the directions. I don't know how to get back home.
I didn't listen to the directions I gave.
So I very much feel like now we have to have a follow up.
I have a big head and little legs. I don't think this plan was thought out very well.
Wait a second. How did none of us make a joke about Larry getting ahead in life? Fuck. We're gonna
I
have
like
to.
the idea that when everybody turned back to normal, Larry
Mhm.
is just Mark, but wearing like one
Yeah.
of those front baby holders, and it's got a little chihuahua in it.
It's got a pillow. It's got an actual pillow in it with a
No, a
face with
chihuahua,
an actual chihuahua. No,
an
we
actual
need.
chihuahua, just just in
Yeah,
there.
we need
Because
to
that's what
do.
I think of as like a big head, little tiny legs on something.
Oh yeah, that's fair. Yeah, we need. I feel like we need a follow up story, whether it's a one shot or a multiple episode. The search for Eddie. The search for Ed. It'll be
I
amazing.
would if Popo hadn't destroyed the hat and it had managed to skitter
Uh,
away.
yeah.
I was describing it skittering away in case somebody wanted to steal it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but Popo decided, nah, fuck this shit, die, and
Well,
I'm happy with that too.
technically, he did end the story with that, but by stabbing it with a Hellfire rapier specifically, he did turn it into a lemure in the Hells. So technically, the spirit of the hat still exists and could wreak havoc.
Its
Mhm.
spirit still exists, but not in its original mystical form. And there,
Mm,
technically, the rapier is only supposed to send a humanoid to turn
mm,
into a lemure.
yeah.
So that was supposed to be an extra little bit of why did it turn this hat into one? A mimic
Hmm.
wouldn't do that. It's not a
Right.
mimic. It's more.
It's more than
That's
a mimic.
basically like a. It's basically like, what is the midway point between a high level character and a deity?
Mm,
And I'm like, and I was thinking, what are you before you're a warlock patron?
mm, a hat.
A hat.
You're a sorting hat.
um,
That was the vibe I got from the hat. I think that was my immediate reaction when you were describing the hat skittering away. I was like, oh, it's the sorting hat. If the sorting hat were like actually evil.
fair, that's an option. Um, I I don't know why I was imagining like a big black top hat with like a red ribbon around it, and then its eyes
Mm,
open up, the brim open for teeth, and the
mm,
sash comes out as like a tongue, and it's just using
mm.
its tongue to crawl away.
Oh, oh, that's
Yeah,
amazing. Yeah, it's
which
amazing.
they're in a theater, so it just tastes like popcorn and soda.
Yeah. Well, is it the theater that Lauren Boebert went to? Because then because then it tastes like popcorn soda and Lauren Boebert's boyfriend's jizz.
Yes, movie theaters in Germany.
Mm, correct.
Anyways,
I never got to have my my little denouement with Snow White. So
no,
the
she's in a different plane of existence.
oh, it's the sequel.
Snow White just in like it's Snow White in New York. Where the fuck am I?
Yeah. Oh,
It's
you.
literally it's the movie Enchanted.
I was gonna say you could do like an urban fantasy, like a gritty urban fantasy. You could have her show up in like a Dresden Files style city. Um, what was I gonna say about? Oh, so was she a?
It's not
She
my
was a.
fault. You set the scenario into zombie apocalypse San Francisco. This is a zombie
Yeah.
apocalypse San Francisco. This is just San Francisco.
was was she also an animatronic or or whatever the other ones were, but a more complete version?
Yeah, basically that was the idea. Was that it's just the the thing was basically a story constantly
Mm,
being rewritten, retold until
mm,
the ending came out right.
gotcha.
And
So
you
she
guys were
was.
on like the 30th iteration or so of this.
Mm, so the one
And
that
that's
we
why your
banished.
memories are that she was coronated hundreds of years ago because that's what your
Mm,
backstory says.
right.
Mhm.
But
I
the
gotcha.
story keeps being reset.
Yeah. So
It's
she was
also
basically a really well made Japanese sex doll. Anyway,
uh
the follow up campaign will start. The very first thing will be like this actual like urban scenario, urban setting. There's something going on, and then all of a sudden, this pallid skinned, dark haired, red lipped woman blips in and goes, "Boy, box," because that was the word that got cut off when when
you're
Rose.
nothing but the toys in a child's you're nothing but tools in a child's toy box. Where the
Uh,
hell am I?
where the wow? I like it.
Um but no, I
Yeah.
like the idea that it's like that one supernatural episode.
Mm, just the one.
Yeah. Anything and everything can reference at least one Supernatural episode.
Yeah.
No, I like to be the one where they get sucked into the real world briefly, and so you
Mm,
Oh,
have now
French
your
mistake.
characters from the fantasy are now in
mhm,
the actual real world.
The French
mhm.
mistake, yes.
The French, yeah, that's what it was.
Gotcha. Now, see, what's
If
funny
there's
is
a key, there must be a
There
lock.
must be a lock.
amazing.
I love that quote so much.
Yeah, because they had to be Jensen and Jared playing Dean and Sam
What's a
playing
padalecki?
Jensen and Jared. So they
That's
had to be Sam and
amazing.
Dean playing the actors playing themselves
Right.
Yeah.
without knowing how to act.
Right.
And then you get Misha just being Misha.
Just being
Yeah.
Misha. Yep.
That's
Which is
amazing.
great.
There's something about
Oh, it's
Misha.
such a good episode.
That's
And then
awesome.
them shitting on the director for self-inserting himself. Bobby Singer self-insertion.
That's amazing. Love it.
Yep.
And I also love the what's a padalecki? I don't know, but it sounds Polish.
It's one of the great
married Ruby?
great episodes.
That's fun. Well, and so
Oh, my goodness.
this is an appropriate place to mention this that I created an alternate ending uh with the edit because I clipped and chipped and chopped up after we transitioned back after the illusion fell and we realized we were in the real world. I chipped and chopped it up because for a while I wasn't saying anything because Carmine died and I was literally just staying quiet and letting that be. And then I at some point I asked, "Oh, is Carmine there?" And you were like, "Yeah." And then it went from there. But I went through and cut out any time that I was talking about Carmine doing something or anybody else was talking about Carmine being there, and it created the illusion that he had been part of the illusion, that he had been part of the kid's imagination. So when the kid died, Carmine wasn't there. So I like the idea if you did a follow up where Snow White actually got pulled into the real world, our world, that you would have Nimue is a character. You stat yourself as Nimue. Uh, Popo stats himself as Popo. Mark as Mark. I I am
That's
Cap.
not fair. I don't allow characters to have a 20 natural strength.
That's fair, honestly. Well, it depends what
That's fair. I
it
know. When
depends.
Mark was sitting there like this,
Click.
I was like, "Holy arm muscles, Batman!"
It depends
I
on what
can't get
level.
over him going to test the strength thing and doing click on like the simple pull, the
See, the
starting
thing
pull.
that blew
Yeah.
my mind is
Mm.
when I was in North Carolina hanging out with all of them. We went fishing one day,
Oh, I'm so jealous.
and he brought a can of corn to use as bait for the little sunfish. He opened it with his bare hands, and it was not a pull tab.
Yeah,
He literally just went.
I've tried
and popped
breaking open
some
a.
of it.
I've tried ripping open a can of soda the way he did. No,
Didn't he do it one handed? Didn't he squeeze it this way, or was it two hands?
I
there
think
were
it was an apple
two
he did
videos.
one handed, and then he did one with
Oh, okay.
a.
He's done
Yeah.
multiple videos. One, the apple
Gotcha.
was just a grip strength, rips it in half. I've done that. Um,
You
I've
just
also split an apple with two hands before.
mm,
Apples are easy.
mm.
Um,
You
the
just
can,
reveal that
an
he has
unopened
had
can of soda,
mm.
puncturing an unopened can of soda with his fingertips and ripping off the top. No.
You just reveal that he has two belts of Hill Giant strength that are just both the size of bracelets, and that's why.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And he hasn't known. He didn't know he was attuned to
No,
both of them.
no, here's a third one. You just don't want to know where that one is.
Oh, I know where that one is. But see, to go in a different direction, does that belt of Hill Giant strength have a flared base? That's the rod of the Pact
I,
Keeper.
all right. Enough of that. I wish you were here for this though.
Yeah,
That'd be
right.
great. Get his input on it.
Anyway, yeah.
I think it's too much asking him to do this and stream on Saturday though.
That's fair. That's fair.
But how many people are in chat right now? 3 people. I am one of them.
Us. I was gonna say I'm one of them. I think it's us. I think we're talking to ourselves, and I am down for that. Let's see here.
I think my wife is the last
Cat
one.
Humru. Oh yes. Hi Himbo's wife. Hi Herbo.
Silly.
Herbo.
Yeah. Thembo.
Thembo. Hi Thembo.
Zombrew Thembo.
Thombr. Correct.
Amazing.
I am here for
Yes.
that. Thembo. Yes.
So,
Um.
what gave you the inspiration for the bad guy?
So it's funny. There's a number of things. The idea actually started that I was going to take far more liberty and steal ideas from a bunch of different things, like full rips, instead of just like these subtle references that I was doing. I was fully going to steal a Billy Bust Up a boss fight
Mm,
from a video game that's going to be coming out at some point. It's still in early development of a video game that's very similar to like aesthetic wise to A Hat in Time,
mm,
but it's all rhythm based for combat.
Okay.
And the
mm,
boss
mm,
fights, you can actually know when to dodge and jump around based on the music that's playing.
Mm.
mm.
And one of the
Interesting.
fights is Fantokyo, a puppeteer, and
Mm,
I love that song so much. And I'm like, I'm gonna have puppets. I'm gonna have these strings that drop, giant mechanical hands that come out, and strings that drop down. And I'll have
mm,
you guys roll Constitution. Or I'll have you guys roll Strength saves to not be possessed by the strings and forced to fight your allies.
mm,
And
mhm,
then it was like, well, how do I make this voice for this character? And I don't remember what it was, but someone or something brought up the Ed Wynn impression. And
mm,
I think I was talking to some friends about Adventure Time, and we were talking about favorite characters, that favorite one-off characters, and I brought up Chuskus.
mm,
Um, and I'm like, I love that impression. I love the impression of like just over the top, a little bit of nasally in the back of your voice. It's one of my
A little Alan
favorites.
Tudyk-y.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
Alan Tudyk was doing an impression of Ed Wynn, and a comedian from the
Um,
30s,
Mm.
50s.
mm,
Um, and he had that iconic voice. It's like Gilbert Godfrey has an iconic voice. You can't get
Yeah.
another one like that. You can only try to imitate it.
right.
Alan Tudyk was imitating Ed Wynn and came out and said so for King Candy. And I realized
Mm,
that if I
mhm.
took that voice and I kept going with it, the old animated Alice in Wonderland used the same thing for the Mad Hatter. Um,
Yeah.
Yes. Mhm.
Alan Tudyk did the same thing for King Candy. They all follow this very over the top, kind of jestery clown vibe of
Right.
you want to do this. You
Mm.
wouldn't hit a guy with glasses, would you?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
And then as I'm trying to come up with voice lines and everything, I'm like, okay, so I've got Mad Hatter meets Willy Wonka because Into the Imagination sort of thing meets King Candy. Well, King Candy was really evil and villainy and has some really hard villain lines. And I
Mm,
started trying to quote them best I could from not having seen Wreck-It Ralph in like 5 years.
Yeah.
And I accidentally started quoting Handsome Jack from Borderlands.
mm,
Mm.
mhm.
And that's when I came out with the every good every good hero story needs a villain.
Yeah, yeah.
You're the villain. You're
Oh,
the bandit. I'm the good guy. I win.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the plan, and he didn't get to say that. I was gonna have him do this whole speech at a quarter health. He went from
Mm.
full health to like trickle down, half health, dead.
Yeah, half health, incinerated. Well, and with the reveal, I sort of got this sense of I sort of got this not to dig too deep, not to drill down too deep into our psychology and accidentally pull something you may not have known you intended. But I got that lonely, abandoned kid that is in every nerd who we were into the geeky shit that nobody else liked. We were mocked for what we liked, so we got our comic books and we hid in the basement. I used to
Mhm.
get my comics and my whatever toys I think and play out by the crick in the park by myself, out in the woods by myself. And this idea of a kid who has done this and been so isolated, who literally has just found this abandoned house where nobody will bother him. And he just like he's got his comics, he's got his TV shows, he's got his movies, he's got all these bits and all these pieces of entertainment in his head, and he finally just loses himself in it. This one time he goes,
I
and so that's the world we found ourselves in.
so I also had two inspirations for the character for the villain. Like the
Mm,
villain had so many facets and like inspirations and all these dynamic things about them that
mm,
if I wrote a story for this campaign, if I wrote a book, there'd be an entire spin-off book just to go through the villain's backstory and how they got up to the point that they're in.
oh yeah.
Mhm.
Mm,
But one of those things being that their parents died and left them orphaned. And
mm,
it was kind of that look at like Naruto with Naruto's upbringing and paralleled with Gaara's upbringing of their parents disappearing and then
mm,
having all this insane power. And
right.
in Gaara's aspect, he was seen as a monster and embraced that and became one, whereas Naruto at least had someone there to treat him nice enough that he never became a
Mm,
full monster. And this orphan
right.
kid never had that. He didn't have the
Right.
power either. Stumbles across this
Yeah.
hat, and in next bit of inspiration, Ice King style is being possessed and manipulated by this hat, whispering in his head things that feel like his own thoughts and
Right.
slowly
Mhm.
manifesting the ability to his imagination starts to manifest into reality in front of him, and
Hmm.
slowly it gets stronger and stronger until he's coating the entire town with his own imagination,
I was
rewriting everyone around him as a story.
I was going to say that reminded me because there was an influence that I remembered picking up while we were playing an old Twilight Zone episode. I think it's the monsters on Maple Street, something to that effect. But it's about this town where everybody is controlled by this one young kid who has the ability to alter reality. And if anybody does anything he doesn't like, turns him into a jack. The one gets turned into a Jack in the Box. But like everybody in
I
this
think I
town is.
remember that episode.
I think it's
I've never seen
called
Twilight Zone.
well, and see, this is a thing, and I've had this conversation with another DM who stuff in this DM's game has reminded me of things like from Stephen King or from this, and this DM's like, I never read that, and I'm like, this is a moment where the Twilight Zone and you tapped into this same underlying concept, because if you hit
Well,
it and they hit it and you never saw the thing they did, then it's one of those sort of archetypal concepts. uh,
I
I'm
forgot
gonna.
who said it, but
Mm,
some great authors stated that there are only 12 stories.
mm,
Everything
mhm.
else is just a variation off of one of those 12 stories.
Yeah. Yep. Uh,
And we've gone for so long, everything's already been written. The only thing you can do is change
oh
the
yeah.
names or the settings and tweak tiny aspects, but everything's already been written. Everything already exists
Mm,
in some capacity. Whether or not you came up with it on your own or you saw someone else's influence doesn't change the story that you're telling. The last bit of
right.
influence I wanted to mention for the villain
Mhm,
comes back to that why they're able how they're able to create their imagination and become so powerful came from an inspiration of the anime Fire Force. There's a character
mm,
Arthur who is abandoned by his parents who are on the run from owing money to the mob or gambling thing, or I don't remember what the issue is, but his parents
mhm,
just up and leave, and
mhm,
they tell
mhm,
him that they're on a grand adventure and he's got to hold down the castle because he's the new king, and it
mm,
causes this child who's been abandoned to create this delusion that he is some sort of knight attempting to become a king, and it
mhm,
literally impacts his power to
mhm.
Mm.
where his power is basically that he has a plasma sword. It gets
Okay.
stronger and he's able to fight with it more skillfully and better the stronger his delusion is.
Mm, mhm,
So with this kid, his illusions and his manifestation of recreating the world became stronger and more powerful the more he allowed himself to get sucked into this illusion he was creating. It leads
mhm,
into this idea that my dad always warned me about because he met people like it. If you LARP or if you play D&D, be able to separate fiction from reality, because if you can't do that, you will be sucked into the fiction and not be able to tell the difference.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
And
mhm,
it's a dangerous pitfall that some people who can't separate the two will fall into.
mhm. Oh yeah,
Um
yeah, definitely.
and they're not common. They don't. Those people aren't like they're not your neighbor sort of thing,
Mm,
but they do exist,
mm,
and that's this idea of this kid's the last vestige of what this kid had left for memories and for who he
mm,
was wandering aimlessly throughout this illusion of a field that he created. That basically you all are in his own subconscious. You're all in
Yeah.
right.
his fantasies.
Yeah.
So his ego has spread out over the entire town, and his id
Mhm.
is walking around it.
Mhm.
And that's
Yeah.
what you ran into. You ran into the kid's id telling
Mhm.
you, "Find me, remind me what it's like to have fun, know people, be normal."
Right.
Because right now, all he's obsessed with is making things the way he wants because it's the only bit of control he has now.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. The Twilight
He's
Zone
supposed to
episode.
be a tragic villain, but you can't know any of that. Is the problem? I
Right.
can't tell you all
You,
this thing, all this
we
stuff.
we can't know that until we've killed him and found out that it was a kid,
Right. Or if you had
or
taken that
or
that
if we had
dramatic
hugged.
scene,
Hmm.
if you had hugging him was going to be enough. That's why also he didn't try pushing you away or using any of his other abilities to repel you. Instead, he
Hmm.
tried to put up a barrier around the two of you.
Right.
Now I'm a bad DM because I read the spell wrong.
That's
Um
okay. There is a spell that does that. I can't remember what it's called. There is a spell that does what you thought, that it prevents things from physically entering. It's a separate spell, but there is one that does
all
that.
right. I just
So
grabbed the wrong one.
as a, well, and so what then I imagine in retrospect, what I imagine Carmine was the kid's attempt. It was the bits and pieces, the teeny tiny threads of the kid, the pieces of his life that were helpful, that he knew could help him. It was essentially him creating a savior for himself. But Carmine had no fucking clue about that because he was infused with
Right.
so many other things. He was infused with the huntsman and this and this. But there were threads in there. There was maybe a thread of like the sound of his father snoring, or you know what I mean, like teeny tiny things that were almost unrecognizable. And that was why Carmine wasn't real. He was a construct built around these center points, but then completely wrapped with fictional this character, this character.
Right. And at that point I feel like Carmine's Drake.
The
Uh
rapper.
what was her name again?
Oh, did you?
No.
I thought you said like Carmine apostrophe S. Janara.
Janara. I feel like at that point Janara was like the family dog and that's why she always knew the direction to go in.
Yeah, and she
Uh-huh.
was ignoring the rest of us, and she's like, I gotta go find Timmy or whatever his name was. I don't think we ever found
Right.
out his name.
Uh
He was too dead
well,
by the time we found him. Um,
yeah. There was
so
going
for
to be this whole idea of if if that didn't go off and you were there hugging him while he's got this invulnerability shield up for a second,
Mhm,
it was going to crack the facade of the voice back into that of a child,
mm,
and more of a question of why would you do this? You're just going to leave like the rest do. You're just going to
mm,
leave like everyone else.
mhm, yeah.
And I was hoping that would have been the moment where everyone's like, okay, back it up.
Yeah, right,
Um,
exactly.
and and Popo is right. I did also screw you guys over because I said the fight was avoidable. And the
Mhm,
first thing I did, I gave you guys 2 rounds for
right,
combat prep. Do
right.
whatever you need to for 2 rounds.
Mhm.
And then I spawned
What's
speak as the devil
up?
and he shall appear a little bit late. Um
It's okay.
we'll we'll start talking about your third belt of Hell Giant strength later.
Yeah, sorry.
What?
We made a joke that if we were to do this campaign again, it would be you guys statting yourselves as you are real life, and I said I'm not allowing a player with 20 strength. Um, for referring to you,
Oh.
and then Cap said you just have 2 belts of Hill Giant strength. They're just really small bracelets, and I made the joke that you actually have 3, but we're not going to tell the third one is.
Oh.
That sums up that conversation.
Yeah.
I then came back with it's a shame that he's not here.
To defend himself, to enjoy this adulation.
Who's betting though? To the box.
Um,
Take it to the barn and fill it up, please. Like
I will say what does upset me is that Pubble was right. I didn't actually give you guys an option to avoid combat because I rolled high and I don't like to fudge my rolls.
Hmm.
All of the mannequins ended up going before you guys, and therefore
Hmm.
it went from a you can avoid combat to you can avoid combat, but I'm gonna start the combat. So it's
Right.
either fight back or run away. I didn't give
Yeah.
you guys a lot of options at the very start,
The
but I
alternative.
wanted to make sure that the
Mhm.
I wanted to make sure that the Mad Hatter character didn't show up until after the mannequins were gone.
Yeah. Well, and the alternative is more on us too, is that we spent 2 rounds doing battle prep, not going like, hey, we should prep to go in there and negotiate. Like we assumed it was a battle, or we assumed it was a fight. And so when we went in there,
Nobody cast detect magic. Nobody cast detect invisibility. Nobody cast
right.
detect good and evil. Nope. Nobody cast anything for prepping looking around.
No, we said we're gonna
If
kill
you
everything.
cast detect magic, if you cast detect magic, you'd be able to tell someone's behind the stage casting spells on themselves.
Yeah, right, yeah, yeah. Wait, if we had cast detect magic, would everything have come off as magic because it was all an illusion?
You would have had a faint aura over everything, but a strong aura over 3 mannequins and someone behind the curtain.
Gotcha. Interesting.
I definitely would have had said there's a faint aura over everything,
Hmm.
everything and everyone.
Right. Yeah.
Um, because I like to say detect magic gives you like this vision that shows you and like it gives you this echolocation sense of everything around you that's magical.
Hmm.
And so you can visualize it. You can tell what school of magic is because it says you can tell what school of magic that is, and it has a
Right.
range all around you. You detect everything in that range. So I
Right.
like to think of it as like an echolocation sort of thing that goes out. So everything's giving off a illusion magic, and then also stronger conjuration magic in the seats from 3 mannequins, and extremely strong abjuration magic coming from behind the curtain.
Hmm. Right. Yeah.
Um, because I know my schools of magic.
It's true.
Also, yes, while you guys did fight 4 mannequins, there were in fact only 3. What it
Hmm.
was when a mannequin reached below 10 HP, their
Hmm.
next turn was supposed to be them leaving that mannequin doll and going to a new one and refreshing their HP pool.
Gotcha.
Problem is, you guys killed them way faster than I thought, and the one that disappeared only had 3 HP left
Hmm.
and came back. It's
We
like
said,
I
fuck those
I
mannequins in particular.
underprepared.
It's
Yeah.
okay. That's okay. That's okay. Speaking of under preparing, like from a DM perspective, for a one shot we're gonna do, um, I told M we're gonna be playing. They're gonna be playing like very lowish level characters, and I said, M, uh, pick
Just
out
take them
pick out
over
an
your shoulder.
insanely
Better.
overpowered legendary item or artifact, knowing that it has about an 85% chance of failing when you try to use it in game.
What does failure look like?
Exactly. We're gonna find out. It'll be based on the context, but it's this idea of in a
Because
world, yeah, in a
because
world with massively powerful artifacts. There are occasionally you're going to get those moments where a really powerful artifact ends up in hands it shouldn't be in.
because Popo's character from our old campaign of Quest for Dawnstar had a spell called Card Throw,
Hmm.
which technically manifested a playing card that he of a random color and he throws.
Hmm.
But if you give it a material component of a playing card deck, you could have a 15% chance that anytime you go to pull that card, you actually end up pulling a card from the deck of many things.
Nice.
And then it's a question of as it's magically floating in front of you, do you have a split-second reaction to either take the card or throw it at your target?
Hmm.
Whoever the card touches it's going to affect.
Nice. So that could
All
be
you
real
know
good or
is that
real bad.
it's a deck of many things, and I'd allowed like an DC 18 or maybe even DC 20 Arcana check to see if you can
Hmm.
tell what the value of the card is before you throw it.
Hmm. Yeah,
That's
I
why
like
it's like
that.
it's I like the idea of it's like Gambit style floating card sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah,
And you pull up one card at a time, and you see it for a split second, and you can either grab it or throw it.
yeah. I had an idea for a story, whether how long it would end up being, but the idea was that you know how you have your standard sort of fetch missions, like, oh, I've got a treasure chest that's stuck in this location, and I need some adventurers to go get it. It was going to be a series of those where you actually discover that these different teams are being sent to get individual cards from a deck of many things. That somehow the cards got split up and are being secreted away, and so someone is hiring multiple teams to go and recover them. I don't know though. Maybe. Never mind. I just had a thought. You all just you all just saw it live, and it's recorded for posterity. The origination of a thought inside my head.
You are a thought.
I am. I am that I am that husband over there.
I thought you were going to say hussy.
And you're that
I mean,
you're
that's
that you're that himbo over there. So you're also a thought.
I am. True. Any other now that you understand the inspiration for the villain, any other questions about the campaign?
I'm sorry.
Any arc that happened?
You mean the ultimate victim?
No, not the villain as a whole. Any questions about any actions you took in the game that you feel you don't understand the result that happened of, or why I chose to say a specific thing? Anything that stuck out that made you question? Well, that's weird.
No. Weird is expected. Like we're engines of chaos. So like you give us a straightforward story and we will find the ways to like. Have you ever seen the movie The 13th Floor? It was made I think it was right around the same time as The Matrix. It was another Matrix style movie. It was a movie about a team of computer scientists who had developed a virtual reality world, and the virtual reality world was set in the 20s, and so they would like go into the virtual world and inhabit characters there and sort of live a life in that 20s world. And then over the course of the movie, spoiler alert, that one of the computer scientists discovers their world is also a virtual simulation. And what they discover is that their world was created by these other entities, beings who do the exact same thing, and that this world was the first world, that there are like almost an infinite number of these worlds, and this world was the first world that had developed its own. So it was sort of this multiversal inception.
Yes, that one Rick and Morty episode.
Right. But there was one part in the movie where the computer scientist who figured this out, I think Craig Berko played him, but there was one part where he's like, he had that Truman Show moment where he's like, I have to test the edges of my world. And so he literally just goes out and drives across the desert. And up until this point of the movie, we're not fully convinced as the audience that he's right, because they're playing with that idea he might be crazy. This going back and forth between worlds might have screwed up his mind. But he eventually gets to he parks his car, goes over this dune, and he's looking out at the horizon, and they cut to his perspective, and there's nothing but undeveloped wireframe stretching out because he has reached the edge of the simulation. All of that to say, we are chaos and we are engines of chaos. If you give us a world, we will find the wireframe edges. We did it in your world. We went out down the road and then we said, fuck this, we're going to go back. And you said, no, I'm sorry, there's wireframe here. You have to go to the parts that's already rendered.
Sorry, you found the dev room?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is undeveloped space. You have to leave.
Someone while walking back accidentally put in the Konami code.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I guess my question would be, what would have happened if one of us had died?
Oh, you weren't allowed to. That
we would have respawned.
There would have been a moment of respawn. Technically, the only reason why Carmine is dead is because in the same 6 seconds, Popo ended the simulation.
Mm.
It's that there is death, but then it's going to rip you back into your body and sit you up like you had a bad dream sort of thing.
Mm,
Mhm.
And you'll be back with that. That's also kind of why Popo did die and he came back. I was going to
mm,
do that anyways. It's just Carmine gave the perfect out for it.
yeah,
I was gonna pull a. I wasn't sure how I was gonna do it. I was either gonna go, well, this isn't fun enough, or um, a hero doesn't kill his villains right off the bat, sort of thing.
yeah.
Um, what's the story when one of the lead actors isn't playing? I was gonna
Yeah.
say
Mm,
something, and Popo was gonna get right back up,
right.
and that was always the plan. It was
Mm,
always the plan that if someone went down, God was going to say, or the kid was going to say, no, no, not yet.
right.
And the plan was, if you guys were to die and lose, it was going to be a total party wipe in order to do so.
Mm,
The
Mhm.
only way you guys would have lost is if I total party wiped.
mm,
And it would have to have been within basically 2 rounds. Only one death saving throw sort of thing per person.
Yeah.
yeah.
And if I couldn't get that off with a character, and I wasn't trying to, mind you, this wasn't a me versus you guys. It was a, where can I get this to work? And honestly, you hanging out in the back screwed that plan from the get go. There was no
Hmm.
way. Well, technically there would have been a way if I pulled another shockwave that knocked everyone down a bunch of hit points, and then my following turn was a lightning strike directly down the aisle. It would have hit you perfectly.
Mhm.
You could have revealed that he had rigged fireballs in all of the seats, and then he could have just nuked the theater.
What's a good show without pyrotechnics?
Exactly.
Yeah, there
So
you go.
so the so so the thought that I had about Carmine is that he got
They just
uploaded
keep
to the
going off, and then one goes off next. Too close.
oh shit, yeah. Carmine got uploaded to the cloud. Um but you know what you could do for a funky twist ending, like Twilight Zone-ish twist ending, is if you have a TPK in that final battle, the final scene is everybody dies, but you remember dying. You have this very clear memory of dying as you walk into this small dwarven village, and you literally end it where it began because it's not fun if
That
the villains die.
that that was another idea, was
Yeah.
to restart you guys in the dwarven village. I was
Mm,
going to go back. I had originally planned. I didn't think you guys would have died so easily to the fight anyways, so I hadn't
mm.
done it. But I was going to go back to the first episode and re-listen to my intro for it, and then just spout off the exact same nonsense.
Amazing.
All
Yep.
right, here we go again.
You know what could
Mark,
be
you got
fun?
any questions about the game?
Um, no, I missed the very beginning, so I just kind of jumped in, and I was trying my best not to be a total murder hobo while at the same time carrying around nukes.
Also, at the same
Okay,
time, being a
first
total
off,
murder hobo.
fuck you.
You're only a partial
I
murder hobo. You only
Mhm.
murdered two of us. Okay, so you're only a partial murder
how do I
hobo.
how do I remove an item from the core rule books? Uh,
You tear that page out and you light it on fire.
yeah. Um I don't often ban things in my games, but apparently I'm banning cannonballs now.
Yeah, I had a feeling you
And
weren't going to let
sacks
that happen again.
and ball bearings and
Yeah.
caltrops and holy water.
Honestly, but remembering the context of that, this is a world that has been created inside this kid's head. It leads me to believe this kid had a very strong pyromaniac streak, and that
Well,
Larry
the idea
was
was that
that was
because
essentially the embodiment of that.
everything is inspired based on a fairy tale. Even
Hmm.
the even the terrifying dark twists are based on fairy tales.
Yeah.
Hell, honestly, Mark's character is the perfect example of a dark
Hmm.
twist from a normal fairy tale because Krampus is a dark twisted fairy tale.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yep.
Um, and that's where it's the idea that this kid, technically, the original idea was that this you guys would have woken up not in an abandoned house but in an abandoned library.
Mm.
Um,
Oh, okay. So have you
but
ever seen the movie?
I said house by accident and had to stick to it.
Have you ever seen the movie The Page Master?
Yes,
That's as soon as you said that or the Never-Ending Story.
yes.
I get a very
A little bit
similar
of
vibe.
Warriors of Virtue too, but we're not talking about that.
Oh.
I was waiting for you to let the Mad Hatter get close enough to me because I know after everything I had done, you had forgotten about my bag of devouring.
I had not forgotten about it. That's why I had him misty step past you. Also,
Ama-
it was a child. I knew for a fact if I let him get close enough to you, I had to let you make an investigation roll. And you would have seen him as a child.
yeah,
A
yeah.
very naughty child.
You're like you have that Lilo and Stitch moment where you're like, your level of naughtiness is very high for someone your size.
Mhm.
So, but that being said, this is just a Q&A session. So if you do have any questions, especially for sessions that you missed, please let them rip. I, I I would be asking chat, but our chat only has 6 viewers in it. Not really. I know who 3 of them are.
Hit us with questions. Any questions. They don't have
4
to
of
be
them are.
related. They don't have to be related to anything we're talking about. If you have questions about literally anything, and if we don't know it, I have a Google subscription. We'll find it out for you.
Oh, Google subscription.
The answer, just so you know, the color is red today.
That's right. That's right. You know what could be interesting too, if you wanted to, if somebody died in the middle of the story, like say somebody died in the bullet battle, you have like you play with the respawn idea, and you have that person wake up back at the starting village, back at their respawn point, and all the rest of the characters were with them, and all the rest of the characters are like, "What the fuck, man?" Because they all got dragged along. They weren't. They were like, "We were fine. Why did we get? Why are we here?" Like you
Oh,
died,
one of
we
those
have to.
group respawn things.
Yeah, I
Oh
died.
no!
You died. We got to go back with you. Like what? Uh,
I imagine if someone like Philip walked into the temporal warp and aged quickly and died.
mm,
When you guys turned around and went back, his avatar would just be T-posing in the background.
yeah, yeah, I like it.
my my wife asking why did my dad leave? It's because you didn't get straight A's in school.
Mm,
I don't care that you were an infant. You didn't get straight A's in school.
uh,
The milk went bad.
I'm trying to. Yeah, there's like there's a tree joke in there. There's a I don't know.
This is my step ladder. I never knew my real ladder.
It's correct.
Um, but no, please. I have so much of this world that I had planned for, or at least I had
Mm.
a vague idea of that. I wish I could have given to you guys,
Well, then
but
here
there was
then
limited time, and
my
there
my
wasn't really
question
any
is
way to put it out there.
what is the piece that you didn't give us, that you weren't able to give us, that we essentially avoided despite your best efforts, that you were really what's the one thing you really 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 wanted to put in the story that you were so excited for that we fucked up and didn't get
Oh, the
to?
good ending.
The one where I hug it out.
Before that, if unfortunately Mark wasn't aware of this because he wasn't here for that session.
Mm,
There was a scene that I basically told everybody, okay, I'm going to monologue for a minute and give a cinematic. Everything that happens is very important. Please don't forget it.
yeah.
Proceeded, everybody forgot it. Um, and I described as this ghost-like vision of a child and 2 adults are running through the woods, swinging their kid back and forth, leading up to only one of them pushing the kid on a swing, and then the kid on a stump crying, and then the kid standing in front of 2 piles of stones. And when the vision disappears, one of the piles of stones is knocked over. And during that whole thing, you hear the song. Sometimes people leave you. Wait, no, what is it? It's
That was
yeah.
the part I forgot.
Sometimes people
Mm.
leave you halfway through the woods. Do not let it grieve you. No one leaves for good. You are not alone. No one is alone. You are not alone. And the idea there was twofold. one of the reasons why I wasn't really letting bards in this campaign was so I leaned you away from music. Um, and then Popo being Popo, he originally created the character that spurred this whole thing, so I couldn't say no bard.
Mm.
He brought in some music, and that was fine. It was an
He's
ending
only
scene, anyways,
he's
for the
only a half
episode.
he's a half bard on his mother's side. It's fine.
Yeah, uh, the way he did it, perfectly fine. Um, we don't want to work. We just want to bang on the drum all day.
Oh my god, that was so good.
It was great. It was fine the way that it worked out. It was
Mhm.
okay. I didn't really care. I was hoping someone would lean into that even slightly if they caught that the BBG was a child, but I
Mm.
couldn't. I didn't want to straight up say that it's a kid.
Right.
That's why I was leaning into. It's a smaller halfling-looking individual, though fully proportionate. It's
Mhm.
a whereas Eddie is a halfling with tiny legs. That
Right.
was supposed to be a little clue, and nobody caught. I feel bad. I should have been more specific. I should have been like, "Hey, someone notices that Eddie's a halfling with tiny legs, but this person is fully proportionate. Is Eddie a freak? Probably."
Yes.
um, and the idea was if you guys could put enough of the pieces, get enough clues together, the BBG was going to be a child. All I
Mhm.
needed was just one person to say, "You're not alone." It would have been
Mm.
better if someone actually sang the song, but if one person said, "You're not alone," it would have been the exact moment for me to go, "Yes, they got it. They got the piece. Crack the facade."
I should have gone back
Good
and
ending. But
you told us to
at
go
which point,
rewatch the first two. The song was the part I forgot because I remember I had asked. I thought that when the kid disappeared in the woods, he essentially was hitching a ride with one of us. That's why I think I said it a couple of times. Like, whose mind is the kid in? I thought that the kid's
and that's why I
spirit.
had to keep saying he's not there.
He's not right. Yeah, yeah. I got halfway there. I got to the hug it
Just
out
another
part.
thing. Just another thing that memory sand was messing with.
Yeah, fuck. Well, honestly, it makes sense that Carmine wouldn't have been the one to pick it up either because Carmine was like the bits, the teeny tiny bits of good that the kid was holding on to, but also wrapped in all of the trauma. And so the trauma was like it was like the kid pushing the good away to embrace the bad, to be the bad guy. Like not he didn't think of
It's
himself
all
as
the
a villain.
naivety.
Mhm.
It's all the naivety.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but the idea was if I could get that facade broken, and the kid, and I could stop talking like this and just break into a little kid complaining voice,
Yeah.
then and break that facade, I knew it would lower your guard for everybody except for Mark because he wasn't here for that.
Mm-hmm.
I would have had the hat basically grow spider legs and latch onto the kid. And
That's
now the
horrific.
fight goes from fighting the villain to fighting the hat and not hurting the kid.
Right.
I
Yeah.
still cast Fireball.
Fair.
He's like that doesn't alter my tactics. Carmine and the kid are both getting fucking roasted.
um
And that
Also,
was
M clocked the tapestries right off the bat, and I'm a little annoyed. M clocking the tapestries instantly and you clocking the riddle instantly is like, I put work into this. This is the subtle part.
Well, that's why I was actually glad I missed the wind one. And so it
Hell,
was
you clocked the army of Snow White minions before I even could say anything about them.
mm, it's because I got a thing
I
for it's because I got a thing
all I
for
got to
pale
say
dark-haired women.
all I got to say was that it was a robot uh that was like half finished under the carpet, looking kind of like Snow White, and you're like, there's an army of them. I'm like, motherfucker, let me get to the point.
You're like, who's the DM here? Stop it. Stop it.
Exactly.
Fair.
Uh,
That is I won't say problem, but that is a very interesting conundrum that I'm sure you've run into having played longer than I have. Is those moments where you're playing and your DM brain kicks in, and then you're like, I got to turn that off, but like also I
Wait,
want to,
what do you mean when you're playing?
huh?
Sorry, forever DM here. What do you mean when you're playing?
Wait, didn't Have you never played in one I've run?
Not when you ran. I played in one of Knight's one shots briefly.
Yes, briefly. The fuck you mean briefly? That shit was 17 hours long. That is
Part 5 of 1.
part 5 of part 2 of, yeah, what was it? Part 2 of part 3, part 3 of part 3. No, that,
It was part 3 of 2.
yeah, it was
The
3
Electric Boogaloo or
parts.
something like that.
It was 3 parts, but I went and downloaded all of them from YouTube and made them into because literally the last episode was 7 hours long, so I chopped them up to make them more manageable. It is 7 episodes of normal length episodes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. You
In
played
that case,
Trico.
I had no issue turning off my DM brain because in that moment
Mm,
I only had to think about what my character would do. And I built a role
mm,
play character. I didn't build a combat character. I built a role play
mhm,
character and I built him so that I could take a step back and let other people do the thing.
mm.
And I let Tony take the wheel a lot of times as well to make
That's
sure
a
that it
terrible.
was even.
And we saw how that worked. Actually, it didn't work out too bad.
Don't mind him. He's just lying about pissing in the corner. Hey, don't do that.
Don't quit pissing in the cool. There were some funny outtakes, like him and Try ran, or not, you didn't play Trico. Oh, yeah, you played
I
Trico.
played Trico, yes. I was Trico.
Tony and Trico ranting about fucking taxes, and then that whole scene about birds and pretending that birds were drones or that they were wild shaped droids, and then the fucking scene, the conversation about
Yes,
undocumented
the birds work for the
changelings.
BBG.
Yeah, it's the
Have
way
you
to
documented your changelings?
That's right. It's the birds are actually drones, and that's how the monarchy keeps tabs on all of the citizens.
Yeah, that was great. We should do more of these post session
Mhm.
conversations to get
Oh
all
yeah,
that stuff out. It's also one
yeah.
of the reasons I love talking to you. You are the eloquent version of me.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that
You've read the
very much.
dictionary and the thesaurus.
I have. The thesaurus is better, but the dictionary has its good points. Um,
You read the dictionary. I was looking for pictures. Turns out there's no pictures next to the word boob.
oh, I mean,
Uh,
there weren't in the edition you got before you had it. You know.
um,
But there was something else about there was Tony. There was something else. I don't remember what it was.
yes.
Let's take that out.
This spawned from the idea of when playing, do you ever have to turn off your DM brain?
Right.
Um, Personally, I don't have that issue. I'm
Mm,
very easy. I can very easily get into this is my character. I might be able to
mhm.
catch on to what the DM is thinking or saying. I don't say it out loud other than "oh fuck" or "you
Uh,
didn't" sort of thing. I
right.
I'm that I noticed. I acknowledge you, but I'm never
Hmm.
like, "Is this gonna happen? Are we gonna be
Right.
doing this?" I've learned very early on because my dad is an asshole. Don't ever say something out loud because if the DM didn't plan for it, now he did.
I have that problem a bit. Well, one of the I think this is probably an for me this is an early DM early player issue that I will grow through, and it's the fact that there's a part of my brain that wants to play the story right. So as a player, I'm thinking, what is the DM doing? And I'm trying to like catch the clues so that I can figure it out so that I can get it right, not realizing there is no right. Unless it's a puzzle or it's like a plot thing that's a very specific plot thing where the DM is trying to foreshadow something. And then even Meg has said, if a DM is trying to foreshadow something, they will hit you with it like 4 or 5 times because they know you're not going to hear it the first time. Probably not going to hear it the second time. The third time you might go like, "Huh, that sounds familiar." Um, but
Yeah,
this idea,
it's
yeah,
the rule of
this,
three with
mhm,
DMing in a way.
yeah, yeah, but I think it's the sort of thing
And
that I will grow out of after a while, where I'll be like, "Oh, it's not about figuring out the story in advance so that I get it right. It's about doing whatever the character's going to do."
it's also one of those I was trying to hit you with that rule of three. You have the ghost child, you have the note under the wall, and then you have Snow White
Mhm,
telling you that your toys in a child's playbox.
mhm.
Um,
See,
or say things in a child's toy box.
the problem was you had a hot, pale-faced, dark-haired lady in heels telling me I was a toy and that didn't
I
drive
never
me.
said she was hot.
That did okay. Every other element led to that element, and that image was not going to drive me in the direction you were hoping to drive me.
I mean, that's fair.
There's a whole other genre.
I mean, to be fair, Snow White is supposed to be really beautiful, so
Yeah, it's fine. It's
fair.
fine.
She is quite literally the new fairest in the land. Now,
Mhm.
to be fair, fairest doesn't mean beautiful. It means pale.
We've had this conversation.
And she
Fair.
quite literally is the palest person in the land.
She's an albino. It could also not.
She's
It could.
incredibly pale,
Mm,
frail, jet black hair, ruby red lips. She
vampire.
sounds like a vampire.
She's a vampire. Yeah. Well, and fair might not even mean looks. It might mean come on, brain, do the brain thing. It might mean attitude or like being fair to other people. Which would be interesting.
She is not malevolent.
No,
Benevolent, sorry.
but
she's not
yeah.
Maleficent.
Malevolent.
Sorry.
No.
Look, we're not talking
She's
about my
more
other.
malevolent than benevolent.
We're not bringing up Maleficent because we're not talking about my other villainous crush.
Okay. So, Cruella de Vil from Once Upon a Time.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is the next story in this potential series, we're going up against Maleficent.
No, I would never do that. However, Ursula. Um,
Smash.
I'd say Maleficent.
Tentacles,
I'm
you
going to
say?
be an Iron Warforged that loves
Mhm.
hunting.
I'm gonna be.
um,
I'm gonna be Scuttle. I'm gonna be a cat. What are they called? The cannets. The gulls that can fly and then dive and swim. Gannet.
I mean,
That's what it
there are
is.
lots of different gulls and albatrosses and things that can.
it's simple. Just play a Locatha.
That's true.
Oh,
They're
we need
just
to
fish.
have
They're literally fish. They're nothing but fish. They can't survive on land. They're just fish.
They're just.
we need to have a
Locatha are
male
so
and
weird.
female hooded grebe.
A what?
A male and a female hooded grebe that meet
Mhm.
and like each other. Just real quick, Google mating ritual hooded grebe.
I
The
don't even know
video
what
is
a hooded grebe is.
No, we
Look
have.
it
I
up.
don't think I
bird.
want to.
We're gonna
They're
have.
really cute. They're cute little burbs.
Wait a second. Aren't Locants just mermaids, but the other direction?
No. Well,
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah. A mermaid is a person that's human up top. That's half human, half fish, but the human is the top half. A
Well,
Locanth is half human,
they're
half
full
fish,
on.
but the bottom half is the human half.
No, it's not. It's like a full fish that just also has arms and legs.
Oh, that's disgusting.
It's like if you took a fish out of like a freezer and took a
Mm.
Barbie's arms and legs and stuck them on it.
See, my brain went if you took a fish and you took a Barbie and shoved the Barbie up inside and then stuck the arms in the.
Same person, different fonts.
Yeah,
There we go.
correct.
There's a gif of hooded grebes meeting and mating.
Oh, cool. I'll put that up for everyone else to see on the chat. I'm not actually going to do that.
Where is it?
In hell.
Hold on. Did it send? Why won't you send?
Because it's
Because it wants to
horrific.
spare us.
Because it's horrific. It's like, no, don't do this to them. It's just
Yeah,
fits,
Panic. I
dude.
was trying to drag people out of your server and get them over here, but it didn't really work.
There we
There
go.
we go.
What the hell
Perfect.
is that?
It's
That's
like
two hooded grebes doing their mating ritual.
it's like hungry, hungry hippo birds. I want to play a cassowary themed Aarakocra. We got to figure out how to make that happen.
Dude, you've been talking about that since the first time I came over to North Carolina, like fucking
You know.
3 years ago.
Okay, so here's what we'll have to do.
That's
And
what that reminds me of.
we'll have to get Himbo into this one as a player. That's awesome. We'll have to not necessarily relaunch. Me and Em have had this conversation about not trying to set up like long running campaigns. Essentially establish the world that the stories are going to take place in, and then run whatever story. And if a story ends up being a one shot with one session, or if it ends up being 4 sessions, or it ends up being 10 sessions, then that story is however long it is. But there's no anticipation that we have to continue following that story for 115 sessions. The next thing that we play takes place in the same world. So characters can recur, but there's no like pressure to, okay, we have to follow this story through level after level. Because I was going to say
So
we got to bring back the Birds of a Feather, and my cassowary Aarakocra could come back in that being a bird.
fair.
Or
I have a question for the first
Quantum Leap.
Hmm? What happened?
what?
Do you remember the show Quantum Leap?
Oh God, yes.
Use that as the thing, and the DM is the one who has to roll all the characters. And every session, they have a new problem they have to solve. They're in new bodies with new stats, and they have to figure out what the hell they are. It's like I have this constant urge to sing. What the fuck? Just
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask the barkeep if I can rent a room. We don't get Dragonborn around here much.
Yeah. That's like
I'm a
that's
Dragonborn.
I was gonna say that's essentially like doing a continuous series of amnesia games. It's like I don't know who
but
I
being the
am.
same person, you just end up in different bodies with a different
Right.
MO.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So I have
would you
I have a
keep your
question.
same mental stats but get different physical stats for every session?
Yes, you have the same
Nice.
mind. So your character is still the same character. You just
Right.
get different stat blocks every time.
So
Right.
the
I
only
dig
two that
it.
would really stay the same would honestly be intelligence and wisdom. Charisma,
Mm.
and even then, you can alter intelligence and wisdom if the setting you're in alters as well as the bodies you're in, because your intelligence and wisdom is based on previous knowledge that might not apply in this world.
Yes,
Mm.
but in Quantum Leap, the guy was actually able to utilize abilities that the people had, like fighting ability
Hmm.
and stuff like that, things that are trained in and become second nature or innate to that person.
I
He
was
was
gonna
able to
say
use.
it would be like, so if you treat it as, you would almost have to say like the wisdom, intelligence, and charisma are also the wisdom, intelligence, charisma of the host, but there's some other sort of core stat or core something that is like the mind, because then the mind can access because it's in this body. And so the idea of like, well, I as the traveler don't know the history, but the body I'm in has a mind
So,
that
you know
does.
what's a great example of this? The video game Jumanji movies.
Mm,
The character's actual real world intelligence and wisdom doesn't technically play a role that much in their character they're playing as, because their character has innate knowledge and information on certain things they otherwise wouldn't know about, and likewise
mm,
doesn't have the ability to break into knowledge on things that they would think they already would know.
mm,
mhm.
Likewise,
mm,
charisma is locked to the person you're in, not the attitude that you had prior.
mm,
You can be the most meek small person in the world, but you get into the body of someone that's super charismatic, you
mm,
exude confidence and you become charismatic. Whereas the vice versa happens as well, where you might be the preppy popular girl full of charisma, but you get put into the body of a fat old guy, your
mm.
charisma is going to drop.
You know what's interesting? I would argue charisma would actually be the one stat you would carry over because that is your mind. Because charisma is I and maybe this is just being autistic. I feel like charisma, especially the fact that it is like performance is a charisma stat. Being autistic and masking, I feel like charisma very much is performative. And there are some
I'm pretty
people
sure
Well,
who
charisma only has 4 checks.
there is a flip side to that in
Mhm,
that a young and attractive male can
mhm,
get away making jokes and digs with young
mhm.
attractive women, whereas you take that exact same mind, put it in a 50-year-old man, now he's just creepy.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
So
So, one thing I want to put in another layer I would like to add to this
This is
is
like a seven bean dip.
if you are putting your mind into another body, that body's hormone levels and the way that their brain works and their body functions is going to be different. And a lot of our personality comes off of how our brains, like chemically, are working.
Mm.
And
Well,
so I wonder how that would affect someone's core personality to have, like, say someone who has like severe depression because of their chemical imbalance gets put in a body that does not have a chemical imbalance.
mhm,
Yeah, there was one episode where the quantum jumper, the guy that helped him that came in through the light door,
mhm,
Mhm.
something happened and he jumped into his body and
mhm.
he couldn't stop staring at the boobs and butts of all the women in the 60s. And then
Yeah,
he realized, he's like, oh my God, you have a dirty mind.
yeah, yeah.
So, yeah.
See,
So
I
so
feel
it
like if
really
you're
is a
gonna
matter
do
of
that,
you can't keep any stats.
well, I was gonna say, I feel like if you do that, you've got to have. I If you were gonna keep a consistent, maybe you invent one. Maybe you invent a seventh stat for this particular sort of thing, because I feel like specifically with the idea of being subject to the physical body that you're in, and sort of also the idea that you're sharing it with another mind, is the idea of having to do, depending on the mind, saves of some sort, like a charisma save, or even like contested charisma checks to see if you are like,
I
if you're
hate to say
male,
it.
if you're male and you end up in a woman's body with woman's hormones, doing a charisma check to see, do these hormones overwhelm your ability because you have no experience with them, or if you roll high enough, you are able to, like, you understand, okay, this is this body doing this, and I'm not used to this, but I'm still able to maintain some level of control.
So I would offer something then to create this world as a DM. The way I would do it is, again, I homebrew so much. There's a reason I'm known as
Mm,
Homebrew Himbo. I
mm,
can take a concept and go, what's a balanced way that keeps it fun and very much unique?
You-
Everything is the same as character development, but
mhm,
you don't get your character sheet. The DM makes the character sheet. What you have is a pool
mhm,
of six modifiers, two zeros. So technically, you actually only have four modifiers: a plus
mhm,
one, a plus two, a minus one, and a minus two.
mhm,
And you take those and you apply them to the stats of your new character, however you want to.
mm,
The only caveat is you cannot apply any two modifiers to the same stat. They have to be
mhm.
completely different stats.
Right.
Or take it a step further, it's two plus ones and a plus two, two minus ones and a minus two. That way
Mm,
you choose, okay, this person has an 8 in intelligence, I'm gonna put my plus two there so I at least have a 10.
mhm,
Or this person has an 8 in dexterity. I really don't care about dexterity. I'm putting my minus two there so I can put a plus two on that 18,
yeah.
sort of
Well,
thing.
you know what's,
Mhm.
you know what could be an interesting use? This could be an interesting use of the mythic system, because the mythic system is it's not a system. You can use it as a system, but it's essentially a collection of mechanics that is intended to stand in for a DM if a player wants to play
Oh.
but doesn't have a DM. It's designed for solo play. And so you use this as the player who is engaging in a story where you're like, I'm the player. I have no idea what the story is. And Mythic has all of these mechanics where you roll on different tables, and the random rolls are the answer of Mythic as the DM telling you, yes, this is how the world is. So I kind of like the idea of using that at the beginning of each session and being like, does my character, like, is my character very dexterous? And you roll a no, and it's like, okay, this body in this one is not a dexterous body, and
But the
letting.
problem is you're
Mm,
also letting the dice determine you're relying heavily on luck for character creation. And I
yeah.
worry that in that you get an unbalanced party where you have someone who just had a
Mm,
lucky day and they're
mm,
really good at everything, and you have someone who had a really bad day and only
mm.
got one good stat.
Yeah,
And that's not fun for the player who got only one good stat unless it's a veteran
yeah.
player. And that's the problem is I find a lot of players don't like the weak character unless they've been playing D&D for long enough to get bored of the overpowered one.
Hmm.
I'm
Yeah,
one of those
yeah,
people who get bored of the overpowered character. I like rolling low.
yeah.
I can do something funny with a low roll. I can't do something
Mhm.
funny with a high roll. Well, I can.
Yeah.
Usually though, a high roll ends up going to the DM to choose.
Mhm.
But now that being said, I also played in a pseudo one shot where I didn't get to choose my character at all. I was literally handed a pre-generated sheet and was told
Mhm.
you can come up with a name, but here's your species, your class, your equipment, and your stat block, and all
Mhm.
the math on the sheet's done for you, sort of thing. And it's like, okay, here's your character. And the cool thing is,
Mhm.
if we use D&D Beyond, a DM can create 20 to 30 characters that are unassigned and choose a player
Mhm.
in that campaign to give it to.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Well, and Dragon Tamer said basically something like an immersion rate, creating like a stability save. I wonder, and I was going to say, I wonder if there's a way to do this. And that's absurd because there's always a way to do anything. But the idea of creating a check where each successive check affects the DC of the next check. And it doesn't automatically make it like it doesn't always become harder or always become easier. But like if you fail to save by certain amounts, that alters the DC of the next save. And then if you make that next save, it alters it. So the save changes based on how you're doing.
So in that case, I would have a sort of a sliding scale, like
Mm.
one of those games of, I don't remember what it's called, but you have a ring on a rope, and you throw and you try to get onto a hook.
Oh,
Um
okay. Yeah. Mm.
it's a type of drinking
I
game where every time you succeed, you move
Yep.
the shot glass in the direction of your
Mm.
opponent, and it goes back and forth. Where in case like that, it's every time there's a skill check, you are going to move that pip to a new DC based on whether the last one was a success or a failure. If it was a failure, you move it down so the DC is easier. If it was a
Hmm.
success, you move it up so it was hard. So now it's harder. The
Yeah.
hard thing is you'd want a separate tracker per player.
Oh,
You
yeah.
wouldn't want to keep it for the whole party, because then you have the
Correct.
person who's always failing to make the checks easier for the person who's always succeeding.
Yeah. And I like this here where it says it could amount to the idea of, and using the word fall, like, so, feel like if a player fell into the role they were assigned, or essentially like in Quantum Leap, um, if you sort of accepted the um, the skills and the needs of the character, the needs of the story, you'd be rewarded. And the idea being that maybe I don't know if you'd find like want to create the idea of falling makes me think of having a save that is almost like related to falling, like almost like
Oh,
a deck check, but the idea that like, yeah, how complementary are you with the person you're inhabiting? How well are you doing at discovering and advancing the needs of that person? And then future tasks getting easier as you do that more.
so two things that made me brought inspiration to this idea. That I've got a couple things now. One of them is I'm super heavily inspired by anime and manga and the like, and I read
Mhm.
Webtoons, which is a manhwa app,
Mm.
Korean manga. One of the manhwa I read is called The Lone Necromancer, and it's a world where it's our world, but some otherworldly being decided to turn the world into a video game and granted everybody the ability
Mm.
to pick one class card of a few floating in front of them. And
Mm.
they have star ratings and they have abilities, but you don't know anything about it when it's presented to you. So I feel like
Mm.
we could do the same. You could do the same thing where you are given a character card that all you know is maybe the class, maybe the
Mm.
name, maybe the speech. You get like one or two information, but that's all you know,
Mm.
and that allows you um, and you get like three options. So the character gets to pick one anytime they're
Yeah.
going into something. But also, my dad told me about a show he really enjoyed. I don't know what it's called. I don't know anything about the show because I never watched it. But all I know is that these group of people can access the traits and skills of past versions of themselves or alternate versions of themselves or something, as long as they
Dollhouse.
do something they've never done before.
Mm. Hmm. Well,
um
the
Sense8.
is it Sensei?
Maybe, I don't
That
know.
sounds like it would be that. So the idea of
All I
immersion
know is
rate,
one person uses a trophy as a flared base, and it works.
um, the idea of an immersion rate, maybe you replace proficiency bonus and or you alter the way proficiency bonus works. Your proficiency bonus does not remain the same. Your proficiency is your immersion. And the better you do at things, the higher your proficiency goes. The worse you do at them, the lower it goes. So doesn't matter what level you're at, your proficiency, your immersion is based on your essentially attunement to the story and to the person that you're inhabiting. And then I
I
wonder if
guess
this. Mhm.
I guess that falls more on the DM to know what the character sheet they handed you would be of a character, so what that character would do, and if the
Mhm.
player plays along with those things, the DM gives them a immersion point
That's kind of like alignment
or a
in the
synchronicity point.
yeah, that's kind of like alignment was back in the day. Like if you acted out of your like if you said I'm a lawful good character and then you broke the law, you actually had it affected the story. You had to change your character sheet or something. Um but then I was
I was thinking more like Assassin's Creed, where if you go too far off the history of the character, it
mm,
messes with the world around you.
mm,
Mm.
yeah, you could do something then this would be world building side, but you could essentially have a mechanic where the DM knows more or less the plot they've laid out. And
I
you could
will
have
say real quick
you,
though,
mm,
you know what this is not about? Grimm's Gathering.
Grimm's Gathering. Is it? Isn't it? Isn't
this
it?
is
That's how
this is a
these
great thing that
happen.
we should let's put a pin in this and like quite literally put a pin in this for the next time there's a behind the screen as
Yeah.
a let's talk about world building
Mm.
concepts for a campaign. Let's
Well,
build a campaign together.
so coming back around to Grimm's Gathering and how we went off the rails and we started doing things that were not necessarily what you had laid out. We went halfway down the road and we said, "Fuck this, we're going back."
You're right. Um, the idea was if someone had died and you went back, you'd see their body possibly there, um, before
Back in
it
the
could be done. I
back
do come
in
back
the
to.
real
I
world.
never actually got an answer. Mark, do you have any questions from possible sessions that you weren't there for, or anything that happened in the sessions you were there for that didn't make a lot of sense to you, or just seemed like an odd detail that I brought up?
Well, I was kind of letting everything just fly over my head because I realized that I missed a lot of lore. But I was wondering if you're. It seemed like you were hurting cats a lot. Um,
I
Yes.
had
is that normal for you, or were you getting frustrated?
no. It's not normal for me. Um, I normally run open world campaigns, and that's what Quest for the Dawn Star on Saturday is going to be. It's going to be open world. You can do whatever you want. I'm not going to hurt you in a direction. You do what you want to do. The problem is, I set a deadline for myself on when I wanted this campaign to end. I want it to be 5 sessions. And after the first 2 sessions, I realized, okay, I need to start pushing people in a direction so we can start moving that way. Because I left it too open. People stood around and did kind of nothing for 2 hours. Stood around on a pathway and started poking an ethereal wall for 2 hours.
We threw a pencil into the ceiling
Um,
of time at one point.
yeah, I realized, okay, I need to kind of coax people
It was
along.
pretty
I
cool
left this
actually.
too open ended. We need a direction. And then by the end of session 4, but while we were wrapping up session 4, I realized, okay, we're about where I want to be in session 3.
Mm,
Like at the beginning of session 3, I don't have enough time now to push people forward to get to the boss. I have to herd. I have to railroad. I have to be like, you are going in this direction. I want it to feel like your character is going to do so. I want to see what your character is doing. I hate that for DMs. I hate DMs who say your character does a thing because your character might not have done that thing. Your character is your character, not the DM's. So coming to the end of the last session, it was a matter of I need you guys to go in this direction so you can at least get to this place so I can leave it open ended again. There were traveling points I need you guys to take, and I didn't know how to get you there without making it feel like I'm hurting cats and being like, go this way.
mm.
And I honestly, I usually lean on Popo for that because Matt is amazing. He's an amazing person, and in our original home game, he would be the driving force of let's go do an actual thing.
Mhm.
and I lean on him too much for that. And it showed with that last session where he didn't want to be that person. He didn't want to be the person leading the group. He wanted to be the guy in the background just being wacky. And
Mhm.
I didn't let him be, and I feel bad for that.
Mm.
And that's why it felt like I was being that's why it might have looked like I was being frustrated and hurting cats, is because the guy I normally lean on for hurting people for me unfortunately didn't want to do that, and I wasn't respecting that.
Mm.
Mm.
To be fair, like hurting it, DMing is almost always hurting cats because we're all chaos gremlins. Um, I do feel like if there were a place where if there were a story where DM caveat sort of is justified, it's this one because of the idea that the characters that we're playing are being manipulated in world. And so you as the
Mhm.
DM, like the when we went back to the dwarf town, the dwarven town, and you were like "Yoink," and put us back on the road, and we're like that you're not at that part of the story. That made sense in world, and you pointed it out. You're like I'm not just, but it does fully make sense because the kid is manipulating the world and has the ability to manipulate space and time, and so him wanting to play and his toys wandering off, it's like no, the villain wants to play, and so us getting yoinked and put where we needed to be made sense in world and in story.
And
Absolutely.
that's why I was trying to be like, okay, you hear a voice telling you to go in that direction.
Yeah.
That's why you only saw one quest light up at a single time. Now there's only one for the theater.
Hmm.
Um, here are the directions to go in. Honestly, that's also on me because the quest for the catacombs didn't exist originally. I had this puzzle, this riddle in my back pocket. I've been trying to use somewhere, and
Mm.
I had just talked to somebody about it to proofread it again. And the original version of it was down one gem. I added another one recently to make the proofreading better.
Mm-hmm.
And you actually weren't the first person I went to with it, by the way.
Mhm.
You
I
were like the
figured.
third. Um,
Mm.
and I kept proofreading it because I really liked this riddle. I pulled it out of one of my old binders, and like, okay, I got it to work now. I want to use it. I got that
Yeah.
shiny new toy syndrome, and I wanted to use the riddle, so I extended the thing too far by letting my one of shiny toys go into it as well.
Mm.
So that's on me. And also, I wanted to make your backstories feel like they had some existence in the game. So that's why I made Snow White a character, and I made this whole mini boss thing because I
Mm.
want to have it feel like you guys had your backstories meant something.
Mm.
Mhm.
Um, I didn't get around to having I didn't have enough time to mention that there was a gambling pool in the corner of the tavern because there just was never time for it.
Mm.
And that's on me. I wanted to put too much into where I gave myself a strict time constraint because I wanted
Yeah.
to be done by the end of this month.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I want to be done technically by this week at the latest.
Hmm.
Last week was more of the go-to. I wanted to be done a little bit earlier, but my life things happened and I needed to push the game back.
Mm. Hmm.
Um, and all this comes down to the reason I want to end so early and get this done and over with was I wanted that time frame where the game it's a one shot. I don't want to turn it into a campaign because don't know how well I can handle a campaign when next month is over.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's, I think,
Um,
and I catch myself doing this a lot because I love the fractalization of a story. The idea of something happening, something unexpected happening because of it, and then the players and the characters going off and investigating that thing, and then something happening because of that, and they go off, and like the unexpectedness of how one plot point will organically develop into another one that was not planned for. I adore that. It's the sandbox mentality. But
and I
then,
love that mentality. I usually play like
mm,
that. It's not
right.
suited for one shots.
Well, and that's the flip side is when when you're sitting down going, I want to run something that's going to be five sessions, or I want to run something that's going to be limited. It's going to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. That's where we have to be like, this is the plot, this is the kernel. I can't put the cool things in this because the cool things will distract the chaos gremlins. The squirrels will go squirrel, and like because and
You
that's the
you
thing
want to
because
add enough detail to give the world depth, but
mm,
you don't want to add too much detail where the players go running after something that doesn't exist.
yeah, because
Yeah.
we will. We absolutely because as much as I love doing it as a DM, and I know that you love doing it as a DM, we love doing it as players too. Because we're like, hey, and there's also this. I got to figure out a name for it. It's this tendency where when a DM mentions something, we as players automatically assume it's important. I was making a reference to that in my teenagers game where they were in a tavern, and I, as the DM, knew this one NPC is core to the story, and so I'm describing like, oh yeah, there's an orc over here doing this, or like there's an orc and a Goliath arm wrestling over here, and there's this happening over here, and there's this happening over here, and then over at this table there's a guy with a coyote curled up under the table, and he's sitting there, and there's a staff leaning. He's got this trench coat, and as soon as I did that, I was like, as the DM, I just told you what the important character is because I described it in enough detail, and I'm like,
But
so
I have a question: are they taking bets on the arm wrestling?
the kids, almost certainly.
No,
If
no, no. That is me. That is my player. I have a
Mhm.
question: are they taking bets on the arm wrestling? If not, I would like to start a betting pool.
You're right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and so it's like either I describe all of the NPCs at that level so that the players, I'm not telegraphing to the players this is the important one, or I don't describe the one that is the important one at any higher level. But the problem is if I describe them all equally, I'm leaving it up to the players to know,
That's why
and they could go decide to get into it with the orc and the Goliath, and I haven't prepared for that. Now that shouldn't be a problem because as DM, I should be able to be like, okay, this is what they're doing, this is what we're going to go with. But yeah, the
I've done the same thing, that
mhm,
star in a tavern sort of thing, but I changed it up so I knew my players knew where they were going.
mhm,
I had it. The reason they're in the tavern is because they got a letter saying to
r-
meet at this tavern for insert thing here. Their skills are needed. Meet me at this tavern and tell the barkeep Mockingbird.
right, yeah,
Or
yeah,
or order from the barkeep a shot of insert this.
hmm,
A shot order from the barkeep tequila Mockingbird.
yeah, yeah,
um
Amazing.
exactly.
and and in doing so, then they walk in the tavern, and now you describe everything equally. Regardless of how you describe everybody else, they know go to the barkeep, say the key phrase. The barkeep
Mhm.
will send you in the direction.
So it's essentially the idea of I don't know if it was. I know. Alfred Hitchcock talked about the MacGuffin, but there's the idea of plot coupons, and so it's the idea of putting a plot coupon in the story and making sure that the players understand where to find it, and then letting the
I
characters figure out how to redeem it. Because when you tell them
I
go
call it
order a shot, good. You call it what?
I I call it Chekhov's bullet.
Okay, yeah.
If you see a bullet in a scene, you know it will have to get loaded into a gun that will be fired at some point. You just don't
Mhm.
have the gun yet.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yep. So you're telling them as part of their backstory and probably part of the prologue as you're setting the scene for the story. You're telling how did you come, we have discovered one of the worst ways if you're trying to run something that's supposed to be a 3.5 hour, 4 hour one shot story, do not tell the players you're all in a tavern and you don't know each other because that shit will take half the episode and you won't get anywhere. You won't get where you intend to get.
Mhm.
Like if you have a story, it's like you give them all the information to start them where you want them to start. Like don't let the team
Oh,
meet.
I told my players, no panic included, for the Quest for the Dawnstar campaign on Saturdays, which if you're watching the stream right now, come back on Saturdays. Hmm.
Correct.
For the Quest for the Dawnstar campaign, the party has known each other for 3 years. They have been in
Hmm.
this crew together for 3 years. You know each other well enough that you know what each other's names are, a little bit about their backstory. You know what they're capable of doing, and you
Hmm.
have no reason not to lean on each other. In fact, you can write your backstories together off of it. So when
Right.
we go and send you off to do a quest, you already have a reason to be together.
Hmm.
This also means there's no lone wolves.
Right.
You can't be
Correct.
edgy, I work alone. You've been working with this group for 3 years.
Yeah. So essentially, if you want to market play that, uh, label it as the Quest for the Dawn Star Season 2 or Campaign 2. They've been together for 3 years. The 3 years they were together was Campaign 1. Y'all just didn't get to see that. This is Campaign 2.
If this was actually a proper reboot of my previous campaign, where
Mm.
the only characters carrying over are my wife, my best friend, and Popo, if they were playing their original characters again, this would be Quest for the Dawn Star again.
Questing again. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that. Well, that's what me and Em have talked about. At some point, we're going to
Or Quest for the
continue.
Dawn Star continued.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think we mentioned it to you too. We're going to continue the Fandelver campaign that I had played in now almost 2 years, it's about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago. Um, it was 6 episodes. It was, it is a very, it is a solid self-contained story. If you watch those 6 episodes, you're like, I feel there could definitely be more, but I don't feel like anything was fully left unresolved. Um,
Mhm.
there was definitely a big cliffhanger. It was like a season finale cliffhanger, but we've talked about going back to that with those two characters and essentially explaining at the very beginning how the other, I think, four characters basically left, went off to do their own thing. Um, but yeah, that same kind of idea of carrying over a couple of characters, and it's the same idea
Um,
as it goes to the
I
idea
mean
of
the whole NPC crew is the same, so I could easily do that.
yeah. Oh, we came up with a title for that. It's or not a title. That style of a game is called a block party because the party is made up of a bunch of creatures with stat blocks instead of character sheets.
Mhm.
Um, I that reminds me, I did want to bring something up because this is the versatile plane. I was
Mhm.
wondering, because my Quest for Dawnstar campaign is a Spelljammer one that takes place over a full galaxy with multiple solar systems, each one having planets or some sort of thing in it that has its own vast specialty to it.
Mm.
Could I post that as like a thing in the Versal Plane server that anybody who wants a DM can pick a planet and have your campaign set there? Free range sort of thing?
I'm
And
pretty
all of
sure
it's canon?
yes. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm saying yes because me and M have discussed a similar type of concept, but on a much smaller scale. So the idea of having like a
I make plans, so yeah.
world. Yeah. Well, the idea of having basically a world where a world in a world where there's not an overarching story, or there's not like a story where if somebody comes in and wants to run this story here, that it's going to mess some major thing up, and
Yeah.
having it so that if there were, say you were going to run 24 sessions or something like that, you wouldn't set out a number because you could say, okay, this DM has an idea they think they can run in like 3 to 5 sessions, and then this DM has an idea they can run in, maybe they're going to run in 6 to 10 sessions, and it's all set.
10
It's all
planets, by the way.
10 planets. Okay, so it's like
10 planets across 7 galaxies.
oh, okay,
Or
I
7
got
solar systems, sorry.
I got a little bit of Battlestar Galactica vibe. I'm here for it. But yeah, all of that to say, yes.
Okay. Because I would love to have like just randomly pop into one of the sessions maybe as a player where we're playing in
Mm,
technically my world, but someone else is running the story because the
right.
politics of that or the boss of that is for their story. It's just my planet. I have the
Hmm.
name
Mhm.
for it. It's got
Yeah.
some of the cool quirks that I set up for the planet, but aside from that, it's unique to you guys. And then I can take that DM's ideas of the planet and come back to my quest for Dawnstar, which is a Spelljammer campaign where the
Hmm.
players can land on that planet and and now interact as if what had just happened.
Right.
Mhm.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Um,
The
I
world
would
that
need to go
we've
into
been.
more depth on each of those planets, I guess, because I've only got about
Mm,
a small like 2 3 paragraph blurb for each planet.
yeah. And I do like the idea too of uh leaning into the communal uh creativity aspect, and
Mhm.
like not necessarily that you should do it this way, but the idea of like, okay, if I have a country that I want to run as essentially a campaign setting, going into it going, okay, this is the name of a couple of cities, of a bunch of cities. Maybe this is the capital city, this is another city, but there are other cities and they haven't been named yet. So I'm going to run a couple of sessions in this, or I'm going to run a story in this. if another DM wants to come in, you can add to this and be like, I'm running a city named this on the western side of this country, and this stuff happens, and essentially let the world building be communal as well as the storytelling.
Absolutely. And
Mm,
that's why my the way I build the worlds is bold and can I read off one of them for you real quick so you get an
no,
idea as to what I have for it. Okay. That's
absolutely
fair.
not. Yes,
Uh
go ahead. No.
so starting real simple is the very first solar system is technically two planets that I want to read off because
Mm,
they matter to each other.
mm,
The first solar system I came up with was the Red Death Sky, a solar system with a strange red aura over everything, home to a red giant star. Most of the planets are uninhabitable. The two planets of interest are Zeron and Zero. These sister planets are perfectly placed off the side of the red giant star Epsilon I-8.
mm,
Zeron is an industrial planet covered with factories and machines meant to dig up valuable natural resources that seem to replenish themselves nearly infinitely. One of these major resources being a natural gas created by the fission reactor that is the center of the planet. This gas, called versatile, is highly combustible and capable of powering an entire city with a single liquid gallon. However, the downside to all this industrialization is the fact that the planet is heavily polluted. The main populace are
mm,
poverty stricken humans, lizardfolk, and genasi. All indentured workers are marked with a brand on their left hand, and if discovered off planet, are captured and returned to work. The higher corporate individuals mostly being comprised of Veldikin, Gif, and Harangon.
mm,
Zero is a planet booming with technological advances, using the steam combustion of Versatile as its source of power, leading to a steampunk aesthetic. The main populace are Veldikin, Gif, and Harangon, and Warforged, though the Warforged are seen as nothing more than tools and exposition statements. Zero
mm,
has the highest amount of commerce due to their non affiliation agreement that allows them to sell magical devices to any group of people without suffering backlash for it. And the Intergalactic Council of Intelligent Species has chosen to turn a blind eye to Zero's mistreatment of Zeron, as Zero supplies the ICIS with the weapons and armor for their military.
mm, Just I
That's everything.
can't imagine where you got some of these ideas from.
Right?
I will say straight up, the Council of Intelligent Species is um is the Federation from Star Trek.
Mm, mhm,
There is the Zelfir Federation, which are Klingons, and
mm,
there is the why am I forgetting the name of it? Hang on.
your
And
version.
there is the Feindal Alliance, which is the Ferengi.
Okay. Yeah.
Full on the political sides of my world building are Star Trek.
Yeah. And that's that's the idea that there are only I've heard it as with 12 stories is I think the version that is like different variations of the three main stories, which is man versus man, man versus nature, and man versus himself. And I kind of don't like
Yeah,
that it's man, 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 but it's person versus person, person versus nature, and person versus themselves. Um, and then I think there are schemas that basically expand each of those into different variation, like a few variations of each of those. But yeah, it says,
it's also why
mm,
everything is either a comedy or a drama, or
mhm,
sorry, a comedy or a tragedy.
or tragedy. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
That's it. Those are the only two.
¿Por qué no los
You want to
dos?
look in action? You look in action. It's usually a combination of comedy and tragedy to make the action.
Right.
Dramas are almost all tragedy with a little bit of comedy thrown in there.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Comedies are stupid.
Well, but when you look at Star Trek, I mean, what you're talking about is societies too. Society is always society, and when you look at
Society.
and when you look across different societies, you see even societies that never interacted with each other, you still see similarities. And it's the idea that we now when you and that's the idea that there is something inherent to us as a species. Science fiction is just taking the idea of commonalities and expanding them outward. So it's this idea of taking like, okay, well, if there are commonalities amongst all humans, if we add in another creature, if we add in Klingons and Vulcans and Ferengi, there's going to be commonalities amongst the Klingons that are going to be different than the humans, but what commonalities will there be between the humans and the Klingons? And then you sort of get into the notion of alternate histories. And you say, well, if humanity had developed in this way, what would it have become? and then you go, okay,
Mhm.
that's what we think it would become. We're going to take that concept and we're going to call it Klingons. And so the different
That makes sense.
races, the different races are just different versions of humanity in alternate timelines, but crammed into one universe.
I mean, that's why the Klingon were just Puerto Ricans with bad haircuts. Um,
I mean, there's
uh, anyway, the now I meant when I finished talking about Zero Zero, you said you noticed the reference. I want to know what you think the reference is.
Oh, I was referring to capitalism being the BBEG, the babeg.
Sort of, but it's actually referencing something for the creation of these two planets. Though
Mm.
the separation into two planets is the special thing. If you combine them into a singular planet with two different layers, the
Mm.
upper and the bottom, that might lean more into where the inspiration comes from.
So is it to do with their names or is it?
Nope, not their names. The
Oh, okay.
societies of the two.
Hold
Oh,
on.
is it the Eloy and the Morlocks?
No,
Oh, okay, then I missed it.
it's Final Fantasy VII.
That's why I missed it. I'm not.
Okay,
I'm a bad nerd. I'm not that kind of nerd.
it's a handful of things. Final Fantasy VII was one of the big inspirations, and the
Mm.
worst part is I haven't actually played enough of Final Fantasy VII to make that reference. It's
Mm.
entirely based on like the first 6 hours of me playing the game.
Mm.
Mhm.
Gotcha.
Um, so it's not a great reference either, and I do apologize.
That's okay. We won't cancel you over appropriating Final Fantasy lore. No.
Sh- shame you gotta take off, but you gotta do what you gotta do.
It's the first night of summer, and the kids want a bonfire.
Oh, well
And
then.
they asked if they could have gasoline. So no, they may
They
not have
asked for
gas.
gasoline.
So
I'm,
it's
I'm gonna go
Somebody
make
gave me
sure.
fire.
yeah,
I don't want to lose any tax deductibles right now, so I'm gonna
yeah.
go.
Take care of them. If you
Mhm.
get a chance, pop back in, and
That's
if you have any
fair.
questions or things to bring up, please do. I enjoy talking about stuff.
Mhm.
All right,
Otherwise,
Got some things.
if I don't see you again, then I'll see you on Saturday.
catch y'all later.
See ya.
Bye.
Have a good one. Um. So where did the was there
Now
if
he's
we
gone. We're gonna lose like two viewers.
if we had followed other roads, was there other stuff, or was it sort of a quantum situation, a quantum ogre situation? Like if we had followed the blue road, would we have ended up in
You
the
did.
same place? If we had followed the other, I don't remember which one we followed. If we had followed the other road, would we have ended up in the same place?
So there was the brown brick road and there was the red road. The red road circled around the dwarven town. The
Hmm.
blue brick road was on the other side of the brown brick road after the boulette fight, and it was the only one, and you guys ended up following it anyways. There weren't
Okay.
branching paths to follow.
Oh, okay.
I I didn't say go you only have one choice, but I never said that there were other choices.
Hmm.
Mhm.
I was under
By
the
not
impression, maybe I imagined, I thought there was another road out of the dwarven village in a completely different direction.
yeah, the red brick road that you guys didn't follow because you were told to follow the brown brick road. You saw the two
Hmm.
roads spiral each other and then one lead off.
Right.
And you didn't
Okay.
follow the other one. The other one, if you followed, would have expanded out and covered the flooring of the dwarven village.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
Fully taken from fan drawings of what the red brick road from Wizard of Oz would have done.
Hmm. Yeah. Yep.
But
Okay.
it's one of those you wouldn't have really gone anywhere. You just would have stayed in place.
Right.
Mhm.
Like life. No. Um.
Now now if you guys wanted to say keep exploring the dwarven village or explore
Mhm.
more of the vampire kingdom,
Mhm.
those technically walk into the woods where the temporal thing was happening,
Mhm.
um or wander around the woods where you found the memories of the child.
Mhm.
Those all would have kind of just been filibustering and just wandering around for a bit before you inevitably would have ended back up on the path. It
Mhm.
wouldn't have felt
Mhm.
like it wouldn't have been the same as when Chet walked out the back door of the tavern and ended up back in front of the tavern.
Mhm.
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 that was the most of the
I'm
time
back in the
morphing
building
bullshit.
again.
Yeah.
And then you guys being like, maybe we need to say where we're going, and and
Yeah.
then the barkeep getting ready to beat you with a broom. I said, get out.
Correct. Yeah.
Get the fuck out.
Get out of my tavern. You're like, we're trying. We don't want to be here any more than
Stanley
you want us to be here.
Stanley took the door on the left.
Give me my Ed pillow back and we're leaving.
Yeah.
I'm choosing to call I'm choosing to believe that the child's name was Willy after Willy Wonka because there was one point. I'm actually choosing to believe this because there was that point where I jokingly was like, "Hey Willy, should we go to the like it might have been about the theater, whatever it was." I literally pulled like a I'm asking God, but I was like, "Hey Willy, should we go to do this?" And you basically were like, "Yeah."
I don't think you said Willie, but I do think you might have actually.
Mm.
I think he
Some
did.
whatever Carmine said, I'm choosing to believe that's the kid's name because I feel like Carmine would have had information he didn't know. Like a goofy joke like that was his expression of a piece of information, a piece of knowledge inside that he didn't know, a piece of information in his id that his superego or his ego didn't realize was truth. And so he's like, "Hey, Willie, hey," because Willie
I feel
had
like at that point,
created him.
the kid's name isn't like William or Willie or anything. It is. That's his middle name, sort of thing.
Right, yeah.
And only those close to him know to call him Willie.
Hmm. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
His grandfather, his grandmother, his grandparent called him that. That was the one. That's why
It,
Carmine was built on the image of his grandparent.
it's kind of like my grandmother for a very very short period of time called me Sandy.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't work. I don't like the nickname, but apparently Sandy is a nickname for Alex.
Oh
Somehow.
yeah, yeah. Alexander.
Oh,
So
Xander, yeah.
Sander, yeah. Yep.
I went by
Huh.
for a while. I went by Xander. That didn't
Hmm.
stick.
Yeah.
And now I just go by Rusty
Or homebrew.
That's good.
or Himbo actually.
Himbo.
Himbo. That's right. That's right. Homebrew
Rusty or
is the
Himbo.
adjective. The rusty himbo.
I'm the
Rusty
Rusty Himbo.
What I'm hearing is what
I
I'm
mean,
hearing.
I might be a Rusty Himbo, but I don't have a Rusty trombone.
He's the rusty himbo. He's not as good as he once was, but he's as good once as he ever was. You're the bard who
All
walks
right, calm
around
down there, Keith.
with a rusty trombone.
Calm
What I'm
down, Keith. We don't.
yeah,
It's a good song though.
what I'm hearing is at some point we're gonna have to run a one shot where the party starts in a tavern called the Rusty Himbo. Oh,
No, we play a game. I show up. I'm just every NPC. I'm not a player. I'm not the
yeah.
DM. I'm just the guy there to be every NPC. It's quite
Hmm.
literally like a Nurse Joy sort of thing, where they're
Hmm.
all just me talking with the best Patrick Warburton impression I can do.
Amazing. Yep.
Well, I can point you in the right direction, but to be fair, it depends on where you're trying to go.
That's right. That's right.
You could go that way. No, you could go that way. But it just depends on where you want to end up.
If you can fly, you can go that way. If you can't fly, you probably can't go that way. You can go that way,
Uh,
but much shorter.
we're gonna go that way. Oh, don't go that way. Never go that way.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
That
Nope.
leads to spam a lot, and that's a silly place.
Oh, done. You should have
I love
led
how
with that.
three different references right there. By the way, we went from Alice in Wonderland to Labyrinth to Spamalot.
Correct. Welcome to Chaos Encounter Spells. Wait a second.
That's a different campaign.
This is the intersection of chaos.
I want to play a game where it's just 6 DMs playing a pre-made module.
Mhm.
Except it's like it's called campaigns in contrary, where at any point someone can go actually and change
Mm.
something from the module.
So it's funny you say that because we had thrown around the idea of running a campaign or running a story in which there is no DM, but there also everybody is DM. So basically, it's DMing by committee, and so anybody can, everybody's playing their character, but anybody can be like, this happens, or this NPC does this. Um, and not in a
Now I
and
just feel
not
like we need to play one of those board games that's just a D&D game.
yeah. Oh, speaking of D&D games, I told my teenager we should write a D&D stage play for her high school. And then I was like, well, to avoid copyright infringement, we're just going to call it a action fantasy. But yeah, it's a fantasy comedy, right? If it's not a fantasy
Mhm.
comedy, if it's a fantasy comedy, it's D&D. If it's a fantasy drama, it's Lord of the Rings. No, I want to run one where everybody plays a mimic, and instead of all the players meeting at a tavern, all of
Okay,
the taverns meet at a player.
so consider make it a musical,
Okay, right, yeah.
and it's an STRM.
Mhm.
It's a stage top role playing musical.
I love it. This is what we're doing.
Instead of a
Is it
tabletop role playing game.
right?
I'm over here going. I was originally gonna say like a TTRPG, and I was trying to think
Mhm.
of a word for a play that starts with the letter G, and I couldn't think of anything.
Mm,
And all I knew was like it's gotta be STR something
right.
because
Yeah.
stage top instead of tabletop.
hmm I dig it. I dig it. I also, me and M throw this idea
You
around.
can
I
still
want
do TTR if you want to do
to.
theater top.
That's true. We'll workshop that for sure. I wanted to do one. Speaking of doing something playing by committee, running a one shot where there's only one character, but there are 4 or 5 people playing it, and it's a 20th level character going up against something, but all the players are playing that one character by committee.
You could do it one step further. You could have a party of 4 people playing the same character.
Mm,
You have a wizard,
mm,
a wizard that died and
mhm,
and became a ghost.
mhm.
Corpse got resurrected as a zombie,
Right,
but skeleton was used for the skeleton army, and
mhm,
he had his clone set up in the backyard.
mhm. I dig it. I dig it.
It's all the
You
same person.
You could play, well, there's a couple other ways to play it too, where if they were all alive. One is that they're all multiversal variants. You could do the Loki thing. The other is that it's a time
Oh yes,
traveler. It's a time traveler, and
Shaggy.
yeah. The other is that it's a time traveler, and you're all playing versions of that character from different points in their timeline. It's a doctor. Then it's
No,
Doctor
don't do
Who.
that. Why not? Because I did that. You did?
Yeah,
I think.
and then you get into that
But what
really
happened?
super.
I don't remember. Someone stopped me.
Yeah, I don't
Someone
remember.
stopped me.
Someone stopped me, and then one of the other versions is like, "Yeah, it was me." Like, yeah, you get into that timey wimey where it's like, "Yeah, but then you know what's going to happen," and it's like, "No, you don't." As a time traveler, you can change the time stream, and if there's 4 of you, there's no such thing as a stable time stream.
Well, why'd you even think to do that? Well, I saw me do it.
Yeah, yeah. I saw me do it,
How
but
did you know to fix it? I saw me do it when I was you.
where did they get
I'm
the
s-
idea to do it?
yeah.
I told them to do it.
That's the bootstrap paradox,
Hmm. Yep.
where
Uh,
it exists purely because it existed.
right. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. all all
Um,
m- all your zombies, all my zombies, something like that was the name of one of the. So there was
but
that was the
like
movie they made into
I
Predestination.
I
Mm.
I also love who stopped you? I did when I was you.
Yeah, me,
It's just this
you.
line. It's just this guy watching the next iteration go to do a thing. The next iteration telling him to stop. And it's like, why stop? Because someone stopped me. Who stopped me? Well, I did.
Yeah, it's you've
Mhm.
seen you've seen the Rick and Morty Mr. Meeseeks episodes.
I actually haven't watched Rick and Morty correctly.
Hey, that's
I've only ever
okay.
I've
seen
Yeah,
never
clips.
watched Rick and Morty.
hey, that's okay too. I've only seen the first two is it the first two? Yeah, I've seen the first 2 seasons, but the Mr. Meeseeks episodes are great. Um, makes
I've
me
seen the
think of
first
that.
episode.
There you go. See, more than zero.
Yeah, more than zero.
Never seen
I've also
any.
seen lots of clips.
Yeah. I feel like watching clips of Rick and Morty is almost a truer way to see that show than to just sit there and watch it from beginning to end.
Okay. Oh, and
That's funny.
Dragon Tamer. MPD would be incorrect. It would be DID.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I thought that thought
MPD
occurred
is a what's the word? Not
obsolete,
toxic, but it not
antiquated,
it's a
problematic.
other big word. Problematic is the one I was gonna go with. Like other big words here. Keep going, Cab. You'll find one. Is
I
problematic
told you.
terminology because it's not it's not multiple personalities technically. It's a dissociative identity. Love you. I'll I'll probably have us wrap up soon because we're just rambling at this point.
That's okay. Well, so and it's
That's what we
funny.
do.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because we had this idea for an Inside Out style thing where each of the characters was going to play a part of a person, where the main story was they had to rescue the core. I also the big twist of the 20th level one shot is that you play the session. The fight that the 20th level character is having, they're meant to lose. They're meant to die because at the end that character dies. At the very end, these five characters wake up in a tavern. Like individually, you describe. You wake up in your room upstairs in a tavern, and you come downstairs. There's all this activity going on, and you see that person, and you see that person, and there's five of them, and you see them, and you instantly recognize them as yourself. They don't look like you, but you instantly know that's part of you, and they're part of you, and they're part of you. And what you end up with at the end is five level 4 characters because the level 20 character got split. That was part of the of losing that battle. And so then the
So you only have
campaign. Mhm.
so at that point you only have four sitting around the table because you're number five.
I was going to say there's different ways to do it. Yeah, there's a couple of ways of like having a
Hi,
surprise reveal.
Trini.
Like there's originally like there's six of you, and you're like, wait, why are there six of
Teeny.
us
Teeny.
at four? Tinny, a little tiny monster.
Um, I love that idea too. There's so many different options to do for something like this. I like the idea
Mm-hmm.
that you do the double shot at three people thing instead of five.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out at the end of it, it was three kobolds in the trench coat. One's at the bottom, strong as he. Two's in the middle, carrying three. Three's on the top, pretending not to be. Three kobolds in a trench coat.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. What did we have? We had something about taking a construct, one of the construct stat blocks.
Appreciate it, Dragon Tamer.
We had the idea of taking one of the construct stat blocks and then revealing that it was actually basically a mech suit that had like a team of kobolds inside of it running, or a team of goblins or something. So it would be like a Warforged Colossus. So it's just like CR 25 uh, creature. And then once it takes enough damage, like what it has thresholds of damage, once it takes a certain amount of damage, the arm clicks and falls off. And like three goblins climb out because they were running the arm.
That'd
I
be
love
pretty
that.
fucking
It
funny.
also makes me think of like doing something like that for because one of the things I'm trying to get into recently is Warhammer,
Haha,
Mm,
me
and
too.
I'm gonna be I have some army already. I'm trying to build my favorite lore based army, which is orcs.
mm, oh,
And I
man.
want to build the big mechs and the big trucks and all the big machines and everything, but I want to tear them apart and have the orc minifigures inside holding the pieces together.
Mm.
That'd be so
I
fucking
want
cool.
a Daka uh, jet with like 2 to 4 orcs on the wings holding them with joints in their arms so I can have it flap up and down.
Yep, correct. Yep, love it.
And it's literally just a bunch of orcs glued together holding panels in place and whatnot. And that's
Hmm.
how these machines exist and are put together because they're just orcs holding them in place.
Or orcs
You
doing orc
take
stuff.
you take an orc tank and you lift it off the base a little bit and have a bunch of orc legs under it
You're right. Yeah,
holding it up.
it's sort of like the Flintstones in a way.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Yeah.
You replace the front of the barrel with a Gretchen. So instead of firing actual missiles, it's firing Gretchens.
Hmm. Correct. Yep.
That's my idea. I'm sure it's been done before, but I've never seen anyone do it, and it makes sense
Mm.
to me.
Well, that's. I think I'm at the point in my sort of D&D trajectory where I learned the game well enough to play the game well enough that I'm like, okay, but now what if I do this? What if I do this? What if I tinker with this? What if this thing is actually this? What if the, and sort of like experimenting and now reaching the point of breaking the game for fun. Or, you know what I mean? Like maybe not necessarily breaking it, but like disassembling it and looking at the pieces, seeing how they fit together. See, I guess that's what homebrewing is. Homebrewing is taking the pieces apart, seeing if you can put them together into a different configuration, seeing if you can add pieces, take pieces away, take pieces of older
Mhm.
models, maybe put them in there.
Playing D&D with a skilled DM is like walking into Legoland and seeing all the big models everywhere and being
Mm,
fascinated in awe of everything. Being
yeah,
a veteran DM is realizing that I get to take those apart and rebuild them.
right. Yeah, yep.
Um, is knowing what all the little blocks are, knowing the technique that was used to make that thing there, so now I can
Hmm.
use it for something else. And I love
Right.
Lego because there are so many building techniques that are really cool.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I do the same thing with homebrew. Is I'm like, you know what? I like this idea. I'm
Hmm.
not gonna necessarily look at how Dungeons and Dragons answered that idea. I'm gonna look
Hmm.
at how I answer that idea.
Right.
Mhm.
Yep.
One of the things that I've add to my campaign are bits and pieces of little bits of, hey, if you want to try this, I'm gonna leave the pieces scattered about. And if you find all the pieces and you try to put them together, I'll have an answer. One of the
Hmm.
things, an item that I found in like looking through, I don't remember if it was homebrew pages or like deep in the old novels of, deep in the old like books of one of like Red Sun or something, was a
Hmm.
vial of mimicry
Hmm.
that contains 5 drops of mimic blood, basically.
Hmm.
Where if you pour a drop on an object, it will become a mimic. Or if
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
consume all 5 drops, you will become a mimic.
Hmm. Hmm. Interesting.
And I like this idea of taking a plasmoid and having it
Mm,
consume this vial of mimicry, and
mm,
now it can change its shape to basically be a changeling that actually is able to fully change its shape and form to whatever it needs to be.
mhm.
Because plasmoids are cool as fuck.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yep.
And I have that in my Quest for Dawnstar campaign. He's
Mm,
a forced experiment of a plasmoid, a mimic, and possibly a changeling or a number of other things. Nobody knows exactly what all DNA is put into him, but he can
mhm,
fully change his shape, color, texture, and everything to just be something else, including just a
mhm,
mini tiny version of someone else. The only thing he can't do is change his mass.
mhm, mhm. We
Um,
we had a similar conversation about,
by the way, his name
Genasi.
is Skittles, and he's entirely built. He's entirely a ripoff of Morph from Treasure Planet.
Amazing.
Amazing.
As he should be.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, and in that same idea of taking two things that exist, like taking a plasmoid and taking Mimic, we had a whole conversation about Genasi lineages, because by the book, there's only four Genasi, and it's the four elements. But then we're like, okay, well, what if an air genasi and a water genasi had a child? And so we started developing like what's the second generation? Um, we had so then we came up with air. I think what I know air and earth genasi
Steam.
resulted in a dust genasi. Um,
Mhm.
fire and water genasi resulted in a steam genasi. Earth and fire, I think, resulted in a magma genasi, and water and earth resulted in a silt genasi, possibly. It was something like that, but it was that idea of like when you mix the elements, what do you get?
So
And
water and air would be ice, and
I think that was right.
um, fire and air theoretically could be lightning.
Well, so
Yes. That's what we had.
the lightning we came up with was actually we based that on the idea of left-handedness, because I think left-handed people make up about 10% of the population. Um, so the idea was that okay, I know I have it in here somewhere.
So we're just going to take Avatar: Last Airbender rules here.
Yeah.
Essentially, mechanics. Where is my
the
list
incre-
of
the incredibly
Genasi?
the incredible 0.001% of water genasi are blood genasi.
Right. So we had fire and water make steam genasi, fire and earth make magma, fire and air make smoke genasi, water and earth make silt genasi, water and air make ice, and air and earth make a dust genasi. But then the way you end up with a lightning genasi is if a steam genasi and a steam genasi have a child, there is a 10% chance that it's a lightning genasi and a 90% chance it's a steam genasi. If a steam genasi and an earth genasi have a child, there's a 10% chance it's a lightning genasi and a 90% chance that it's a crystal genasi. And then when we got from lightning, once we got lightning, we said if it was a lightning and an earth genasi, that's how you end up with metal genasi. And essentially, that idea of working your way down of the combinations of these elements and then the combination of the
Uh,
combinations.
Question:
Uh huh.
Have you ever played Doodle God?
I have not. Should I?
Okay, yes, because you just played Doodle God.
Okay. So let me rephrase my
You
answer.
literally just
Yes.
the game the game starts you off with like four elements, I think, of water, fire, earth, and air, and you have to
Mm-hmm.
combine two elements, and you get a new element that might be part of one of the other categories or its own
Mm-hmm.
category. You can get to literally anything,
Mm-hmm.
and you combine these sort of things. Fire and water do make steam. Fire
Mm-hmm.
and air, I think, make energy.
Mm-hmm.
And all these other things, and it's really interesting because you they basically were playing Doodle God. I think you'd have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
there's like 10,000 combinations
Mm.
for the whole game, but
Well,
it's a lot of fun.
yeah, I actually introduced a dust genasi into
Good.
the Netherweave story. The bartender at the Twin Moon Saloon is a dust genasi. Um,
Can I offer a couple more? What? Wait, what did you say? Water and earth was silt.
water and earth. Walter,
Was silt, I think.
I have
Yeah.
silt listed here. Yeah,
Surprised you didn't go with mud. That's another
I
one.
think I avoided that on purpose. That felt
Yeah, you did.
potentially problematic. I was like, because that would be the obvious. And I think I just went with silt because silt is the what makes up a riverbed. It's the combination of.
So I have two suggestions, potentially into a third one.
Okay,
One is
perfect.
a silt and an earth to
Hmm.
make sand.
Yes, that works perfect.
And then or a silt and a water to
Mhm.
make bog
Okay,
Mm.
or like not bog marsh, a genasi,
okay, yeah,
and that
I
would
dig it.
allow you to then take a marsh genasi and mix it with something else to create a wood genasi.
Mm-hmm. I like it.
And you
Yeah.
literally can just get such branching elements that you have an entire campaign world that's just genasi.
Hmm. Well, that was the idea. Was that if you have any world that has these four Genasi types, it's not going to stay just those four Genasi types. If that world exists for thousands of years, you're not just unless you've decided a priori that it's only those four types, and that like crossing the
It's also an
elements.
argument at that point
Mhm.
because genasi are the offspring of genie, or
Right,
Jin specifically,
which is weird to
that
me.
perhaps
Okay.
the can't, perhaps there's some genetic coding that
Hmm.
they're infertile with that with other Jin because the magics
Hmm.
don't coalesce, and
Right.
and the resulting child is unstable.
I was going to say that. Yeah, it would essentially be that each of the so in Jainism there are there are spirits, there are one nature spirits called Ekandria or Kendria, and they are essentially it's the mythological basis for what genasi generally are treated as. Um, the idea would be that each of the genasi types are actually species, and so because they're like scientifically species, they can't create. There's there are words my brain
I
is
mean,
offering.
convergent. They are effectively convergent evolution.
Yeah, that an Earth Genasi and an Air Genasi can have a child, but that child cannot have children because Earth Genasi and Air
Um,
Genasi, horse and mule or horse and donkey. It's the same idea.
Yeah, I was about
Oh,
to say mule. Mules are actually technically a thing in D&D
Mm.
that are half dwarves.
Oh, okay.
They're in second edition, half dwarves existed, and then they were called mules because they're
Mm.
infertile. They can't.
Gotcha.
They have all the weird characteristics of a dwarf and a human, where they have the dwarf's stocky torso, but a human's
Mm.
long legs. They look uncomfortable. Uh,
Mm, mhm. Yeah, yeah. I see. I always thought genasi should have been elementals. Like that. I never understood why they were genies or connected to Jinn.
Jin, yeah.
Yeah. Although
Um,
are Jinn celestial or elemental? Now that I'm saying that out loud, we are gonna find out.
I think in D&D lore they're considered fiends.
Let's see. A genie Djinni is an elemental.
A genie.
Yeah. Am I thinking of a free a freedy?
If Ifrit.
Hmm.
Ifrit is for the fire elemental.
Let's see that.
Ifrit is for fire.
It's also an elemental. Yeah. Huh. Let's see. So this
Sylph?
would.
No. Nymph is water.
Hmm.
Sylph is air, and Dryad is earth.
Let's see. There's where are you at here? Tag. There we go. Tags. Genie. Yes. Okay. Filter monsters. Uh, so there's the Marid. So these are all CR11. The Marid
Which are earth, I
is
believe. No, the earth are start with an O.
well, let's see. The Marid is water. The Efreet is or Efrit is
Fire.
fire. The Genie is air, and the
The genie
Dao
itself, okay. Now,
DAO is earth. Yes. So and they
there
are
are
all
a number of
listed.
variants.
They are genies and they are elementals. So maybe both are correct. They're connected to
Well,
genies because genies
and,
are elementals.
and now keep in mind each of the genasi are descendants of one of those.
Hmm.
So that's why they can't intermix. Is because they're
Right.
not descendants of the same one of those. They're descendants of each one of those.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's an idea, but I like the idea that they do mix. And then when they do mix, there's like a certain reach. They only go so far out for mixing before the pool gets too diluted and you just get humans.
Yeah. I had this notion that humans in D&D, and it's, I mean, it is, I feel like this is how most people view it, that humans in D&D are not what we, like, they don't look, like a human man in the D&D world would not look like me as a human. Like, we are this just combination of all of the conceptual creature types or playable creature types. Like we're a mishmash. I am a flavorless paste of creature types. Uh,
Well, no, the D&D humans would be the same because D&D
yeah,
humans are the only species lore-wise that are supposed to be able to intermingle with all other species, which means they
yeah.
have to have some key, like a lot of key
Mm.
DNA genomes that match to everything else.
That's always been that's always struck me as a
So you
little
got
weird. I'm trying to work my way through if the transitive property should apply there. Like if a human can have if you can have a half dragonborn, right? Like a human and a dragonborn can have a child, and a human and an elf can have a child. So you're going to have a half elf. If they can both have children with the human, shouldn't they be able to have children with each other? Or is it this idea that like there is a no, because whatever part of the dragonborn can have children with the human would have to match the part of the elf that can have a child with a
not
human.
not necessarily. Think about it this way: everybody's super simplified. Everyone's DNA is made up of 16 pips
Hmm.
of a varying insert thing here, but there
Hmm.
are 100 different things that those pips could be
Hmm.
across the 16 species. We're gonna say humans share one with every single, or across 17 species, humans share one with every single one of those species, and none of those share any with each other.
Oh, okay. That is an excellent
So
example. Well played.
humans have the ability to connect to literally anybody because they have the universal keyhole. And yeah.
I
And
just let me write that down. Sorry, that's the title of this episode.
universal
Universal
keyhole.
keyhole.
Docs, stream information, the universal keyhole. See, I knew we'd get there eventually. I knew we'd
Did you see what
eventually.
Teeny said?
No.
That's amazing. And what I'm hearing,
Oh
is
god.
I'm hearing there's a market for that, and you should make those. I'll bet you $20. Here's the thing. I'll bet you if you crocheted truck nuts, you could sell them for $500 a pair to cyber truck drivers.
Oh my god. Don't tempt me because I do know how to do a pom-pom stitch.
Welcome to the chaos, Kilt. Kilt joined the conversation at Universal Keyhole.
I mean, to be fair, if you go and watch, you should go and watch Archeo Wolf's new video that he made of the what did he call it? I don't want to give it away because you just have to see it, but he was like, I found something really disturbing and I blame Facebook for it.
So I'm not gonna lie, when I download
Teeny
this,
knows which one I'm talking about because you're gonna need eye bleach after you see it.
I'm not gonna lie, when I download this episode, I might clip that video in at this point and
If
then
you
put
remember.
this over on. Remember what?
Yes.
Exactly.
Remember Rose's name.
Remember the 5th of
Ruby.
November, the gunpowder
Wait,
treason.
now I can't remember. It was Rose, right?
No,
Correct,
Ruby.
it was Rose.
Yeah, okay.
Now she busted
now
my
he's messing me
stones.
up.
No, see, here's the
Hey,
problem.
Simon.
Yeah. Hey, Simon, where's Ruby? See, this is the problem though. In another story that we're doing, we just rode an airship to a mountaintop, and the airship was called the Ruby Rita.
Yeah, I did that on purpose.
Oh, I know.
Yeah,
Oh, I know.
I can come up with any reason for anything to exist in any form of lore. You give me something that doesn't make any sense, I can tell you why it does.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't need to be canon until we make it canon. You can
Right.
say that any species can intermingle with any species because, well, why not? But then it becomes a question of, at what point does that species become muddled? How far down that rabbit hole does it go? If I mix a dragonborn who's half dragon, half human with a human, the resulting child is still a dragonborn because they're a quarter dragon.
Mm-hmm.
How many times down a human are they no longer a dragonborn? What's
See,
that middle state? What is like 1/32nd dragonborn look like? Is it just a dude with a little bit of scaly skin?
See this, and this crosses back over into the really, really touchy, problematic conversation that we as a human race have always had about race, because that gets into the ideas. If you go back and look at the North Carolina state constitution, when interracial marriage was outlawed in North Carolina, it was written in the law and in the constitution that someone was considered black if they had a black ancestor to the third generation inclusive, and that's the actual verbiage. So it gets to this idea of like legally defining like what is it, and had nothing to do with genetics, but it's because if you say, okay, this person is black, then you're saying, okay, that person had to have had it gets into a really, really squicky concept.
But then it's the question of, like, for third generation, but if you go back 3 generations and that person was considered black, that means that their kid was black, and then everyone down the line.
Right, exactly.
So
Exactly.
it doesn't work. You're trying to
Yeah.
grandfather out
Right.
an
Well,
ethnicity.
yeah. Well, and I think the idea with in D&D, and that's I feel like in D&D is the area where it's safer to have those conversations and safer to explore those concepts. I feel like if you're playing with the idea of genetics in a fantasy concept, when you take, like, say you take a dragon, say you have a character and you want to say, my father was a dragonborn and my mother was a water genasi. I'd say,
Uh,
great.
so real quick,
Mm,
let's say your mother is let's say your mother is a brass dragon and your
mm,
father is an air genasi, because that was Popo's character in my last campaign.
amazing. Let's say your mother was a hamster and your father
And your
smelled
father smelt of
of
elderberries.
elderberries. Uh,
Thank you. I was thinking it. I just didn't
yeah,
want to say it because it was the obvious joke.
right. So I would say, if somebody said, okay, I want to play somebody where the father was a dragonborn and the mother was a water genasi, I'd say absolutely fantastic. Pull those two character sheets, whatever, and look at the traits and pick, and then go, okay, you're going to end up with 6 traits. Like if you were a dragonborn, you'd have these 6 traits. If you were a water genasi, you'd have these 6 traits. Cool. Pick 6 of those 12, because to me that's sort of how genetics works in a way. It's not that you're going to get muddled to the point where everything smears together. It's that certain traits are going to get passed down because you're treating them as chromosomal, and the chromosomes are what are going to carry it forward. And so you're going to end up with someone. Now the question is, like, okay, what does this person look like? That I would like be like, okay, that's up to the player. How do you envision a character that has draconic ancestry and genasi ancestry of a water nature? Is it like your
So
scales look almost aquatic, or however you decide to do it? Mm,
one of the things that we did with Popo's character, because he went with a brass dragonborn,
mm,
was that he was a brass dragonborn, just as a brass dragonborn, and I was going to give him a few air genasi things at
mm,
times he was not prepared for them. I was going to randomly have
mhm.
his character start floating, which is great because his character
Yeah.
had the flaw of fear of heights. Um,
Yeah. And
because
yeah.
the way I run it is
Mm,
I have everybody pulls a flaw that homebrew feat called the flaw, and
mhm.
their character now has that flaw, and they get a free feat to start the game with as well to
Yeah.
balance it out.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
That means
Well.
that they have something that gives them a negative, and they have something that gives them a positive. He went with
Yeah.
Fear of Heights. We described his character as a brass dragonborn with bits of metal scales around his mouth and his eyes and his
Mm.
fingertips that were that tinted blue that happens when you heat up metal.
Ooh, agonized.
Because a
Yeah.
brass dragonborn is fire,
Right. Well, Kilt
but
makes the
also the
excellent
blue for air genasi.
Kilt makes the excellent point, and this gets into the idea of like changelings and doppelgangers. All of the metallic dragons, the adult metallic dragons and up, can change shape. They can turn into humanoids of whatever humanoid type. So what happens when the dragon turns into a human, turns into an elf, and has a
Well,
child?
I
Mhm.
think it matters whether or not the dragon is the father or mother,
Also true.
because
Also
if it's
true,
the
and
mother, shouldn't be
mhm,
an issue, because as we already know, there is a playable race that lays eggs.
mhm.
You
I
think?
make I make the argument then that the mother is the more important, because if procreation occurs in the fantasy realm the same way it does here, the father's contribution is extraordinarily limited. The father is contributing the glue. The mother is putting the model together. Um, and so then
And
I
if
I would say the mother's feature type is more relevant, and probably you're going to get traits more related to the mother than to the father for that reason.
at at the same time, you could look at it as, if we're looking at dragons specifically, how closely do we relate them to real world animals, where there might be
Mm,
competitors and built-in mechanisms to hold on to that glue for a year or more,
mhm,
because there are
mm,
certain reptiles that can do that.
yeah.
And then it's a matter of,
Mm,
well, I haven't seen her in like 4 years. What do you mean I have a 2-year-old? That doesn't make any sense. Well, it does if you think about it in other ways.
mm,
There's just too many things
right.
that we're asking questions nobody's ever asked before, because it doesn't matter when you're playing the game.
Right. Unless you want to make it part of your backstory. Well, now this goes all the way back around for me, full circle, to the very first character I ever created, which was Shane Feywilder, Changeling. Because in the process of creating that character and him as a changeling, them as a changeling, I had the disturbing notion that what if Shane is Shane and produces material, and then
Glue.
shapeshifts, produces glue, and then shapeshifts into uh his female form, their female form, and then uses said material, can a changeling make themselves pregnant? And I had a running
So
joke in which Shane joked about that he had a cousin whose parent was whose parent was both of their parents.
so it would be the same as uh inbred,
Mm,
and it would also be the same as technological advances we have actually discovered in the real world, that you can take bone marrow and use it for
mm,
insemination,
right.
and you
Yep.
can take that same material from the carrier to
Hmm.
inseminate the egg.
Yep.
It just runs into the issue of you don't have enough genetic material to cross around. You
Right.
come out with something that is not really half formed as much as it is missing a few links.
Susceptible to, yeah, more susceptible to uh, detrimental mutation.
Hmm.
At that point,
Yeah.
your cousin is effectively that Ditto who couldn't do faces, or better yet, what is his name? He's my favorite character from Deep Space Nine. Why am I forgetting his name? Odo from Deep Space Nine, who
Yeah. Mm.
can't do faces. He's a shapeshifter, but
There's a
he's just really bad at the nose.
apparently there's a chart from third edition that details which species, according to the writers, according to, well, it wasn't Wizards of the Coast at that time. I think it was still TSR, but according to TSR, what? teeny, teeny. You mean
Um,
what if the father was a dragon that is chaotic evil? Teeny
the
asked,
B in BBEG stands for big.
Teeny asked, Teeny asked,
The big
what if
bad
you,
evil guy.
I was gonna say,
Egg.
so what I'm hearing is that the babeg, yeah, what I'm hearing is that I'm gonna block myself. No, you're not. Because I'm gonna play a Dragonborn who's like, my mother was lawful good, but my father, well, he was a bad dragon.
I've come to meet the Dell, the dark evil lord. Nobody gets that. Nobody gets that reference, and I know it.
It's okay. It's okay.
It's a shame. Galavan is such a good show, though.
Wait,
Oh,
yes, okay. It's been a
mm-hmm.
long time since I've seen that show.
It's
A
the
long
very last
time.
episode.
Um,
And
amazing.
yeah,
Yeah, and it's
There
funny
should have
because
been more.
the
there should
only
have been.
other
Gallivant is my Firefly.
nah,
Satan. Well, it can't be because there's 2 seasons. Uh,
mm, ouch.
we got a 2nd season.
Wait. Gallivant is your dark angel.
There you go.
Gallivant's my dirty pleasure. Uh,
Gallivant's your bad
off
dragon.
with his shirt. Wait.
Oh, amazing.
Sorry for waking you, buddy.
Don't wake up
No,
your
I'm
bed.
sorry.
So
Come here.
if I had a
Show
bad
me the baby.
if
Show
I
me the baby.
Breathe
oh
The
fire, Tad
baby.
Cooper.
if
I'm
I had
sorry,
a bad
buddy.
Wait, that's his name?
No, his name's Reptar.
Oh, okay, I was gonna be
oh,
like,
My first bearded dragon's name was Tadley Cooper.
perfect.
That's amazing. If I had a
I'm
bad
sorry,
dragon,
buddy.
it would be Ebony, and I would call it Toothless.
I know. You're stressed out. I woke you up.
Yeah. Oh, yes, him too.
He is grabbing my arm so tightly right now.
Oh, it's okay, little guy. It's okay. I promise.
He's very cute.
You're a real dragon. It's Tony. You're a dragon. You're a real dragon.
That's Tony and Scarlet. About size wise too.
Honestly, yeah. Yeah. So the whole
Tony's a
man,
kobold and Scarlet's a Goliath.
Buddy. Go
yeah,
back to sleep.
we've developed some of the story with them is that later on they actually encounter, I think they saved a dragon. And at some point they encountered somebody who could cast polymorph, who actually polymorphed Tony into a dragon. And Scarlet, whether she decided to believe it or she just believed it, because the dragon that they rescued was a metallic dragon that could shape change, and it shape changed into different humanoid forms. And so Scarlet's like, "Oh yeah, dragons can turn into humanoid form. So Tony is obviously a dragon. And then they found somebody, they encountered somebody who cast polymorph, and that person cast polymorph on Tony and turned him into a dragon. And then eventually he turned back, and she's like, "Oh, he's a metallic dragon." I think she started telling me he's a metallic dragon who forgot how to turn back. He turned in a humanoid into a kobold, and he forgot how to turn back into his normal. But he is a dragon. He's just forgetful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like the idea that Try ended up just actually like getting into the silver.
Oh, the silver steeds,
I forgot the name. The sil-
Mm-hmm.
the fancy inn
couriers.
uh
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. I know what you're talking about
and it got in real close with the owner,
now. Yeah.
and that's it. I I wanted to
Correct.
play the bard, not a
Hmm.
bard, the bard.
The bard.
The Bard. Well, we've done. I mean, I mean, Scarlett's pretty much
You mad at me,
got
buddy?
got a good relationship with the. What was the place where we ended off? The brothel, essentially. Um,
I can't remember what it was called.
I can't either.
I
It's okay though.
I haven't.
You do. You have a dragon on
Am
your
I
chest.
still in? Are
Uh,
we still in roll 20? And still in that roll 20 game?
that wasn't in roll 20. That was in a different. That was in like
No, it was on roll 20.
No, it was
no, that one was
The
it
for,
was something.
the Forge Foundry thing.
Yeah, it was something that Knight sent us. But if you go back and watch, I mean, if you go back and it's in this. Oh, you know what's funny? Actually, let me pull that up. The next 3 episodes, I think, go into May. So I think only the first 4 sessions of the edited up sessions have reposted. I set them on a schedule to go weekly. I think the next 3 are over the next 3 weeks. So, spoiler alert, everybody. Scarlett's going to learn that she has certain affinities, and she's going to get to experience them. And Tony does the cutest thing I ever fucking did as a player, and it literally was like 3 sessions apart because we a courier, spoiler alert, it's not a spoiler, a courier helped us out, and we found out her name and her name was Lily and the horse's name was Chestnut. This is how fucking cute it was. I actually remember. She refused to allow us to tip her, and so I found out the names though. And so Tony, at some point later, ended up getting 28 silver, like as loot for something. And the very last thing that Tony did as part of that story was he deliberately went down to like the farmer's market or somewhere where there was, not the upscale market, and bought 28 silver worth of carrots and told them to deliver them to the courier for Lily and Chestnut.
Nice.
Yeah. And then I lost my connection because that was literally 7 hours into that. But yeah, they're adorbs.
Eon Creations.
Mm,
I'm wondering if it still exists enough for me to log into.
that's a good question.
Probably not.
Oh yeah, I'm not gonna remember. I remember the madam's
Link is
name
not
was
loading.
Frowena. Um, but I also remember that Tony was downstairs. That the receptionist kept flirting with him, kept calling him Mr. Brightscales, but he was so in his feels because he's like the kids grow up so fast. And then I think he was eating chocolate. Like him and the receptionist had chocolates at her. That's right, because he was talking to her. He was talking to her about like his one weird thing is that he knows an insane amount about chocolates because at
He's a
his
baby. Aw.
hometown,
Look at him, so cute. He's just chilling.
well, true, it's Reptar.
Josh just got home, so I was like, must see the baby.
What's
Apparently, his
up?
original name was Rex, and then he was renamed to Reptar, and
Mhm,
I got him after that, and I just
mhm.
don't have any reason to rename him again.
No, correct.
Are we done, buddy? You want to go back? Okay, come on, you know the deal. You gotta behave enough.
No, I don't. I'm gonna
No
poop on you.
jumping. No jumping.
Don't tell me not to
There
dump.
you go.
You're not even my real dad.
You're adopted.
What?
Oh, he's giving me a side eye now.
How dare you?
No.
All right.
Well, I do believe. I think Reptar.
Fun enough.
I was gonna say Reptar and Josh are both like, we're done. So
I
Quest
love
for the
that we
Dawn.
talked about a bunch of random
Oh, yeah.
stuff.
I mean, that's what a wrap up is. Yeah. So Quest for the Dawn Star, that will be on the Versal Plane. Knight's streaming that.
Yes.
When will that be? Let the viewers
That
know.
will be Saturday nights, 9 p.m. to midnight Eastern Standard Time, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. Central Standard Time. You do the math for the rest. I do not care.
Starting this Saturday?
Starting this Saturday.
Oh, very nice, very nice. Yeah, Saturday
May
the
3rd, skipping May 10th, and then picking back up on May 17th.
Nice.
Okay.
Nice. There you go. There you go.
Unfortunately, I will not be able to run the game on May 10th because I will be at the North Forge Gathering.
Ah, there you go.
Don't remind me.
Because I'm being kidnapped.
You're being
himbo. Being kidnapped.
You're being himbo napped.
I'm being adult napped.
There you go. There you go. Okay, so let's see. That's May 3rd. That's right. That's right. Yeah. So that's tonight. That was that night. We'll go have fun. I don't think we're streaming the. I keep calling it the Cipher System. It's going to be called something else. I don't think we're streaming session 0, but there's a possibility that on Friday that will get streamed. Sunday, and we'll have to run this by Kilt. Sunday the 4th, Star Wars Day. There will be a essentially playtest of a dungeon crawl. I believe there's a better possibility we're streaming that. That will be run by our very own Kilton Beard. But we will confirm that before then. I'm not just going to start streaming without getting everybody's enthusiastic consent. But there's stuff. There's stuff in the making. Panic. No panic.
Yes, there is.
No panic. I will also drop.
No, he's at my game on Saturdays.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, you can't panic, Kilt, because Himbo has all the panic on Saturdays. There's none left for Sunday. There is.
Unfortunately, there's no button for that.
That's right. There is a nebulous, vague one shot that will be happening on May 15th for no particular reason at all. It'll be a block party that will be happening on May 15th. It will be abject chaos. That is the goal and purpose.
Adjective chaos.
One might say it will be an affair to remember. Teeny might know. And yeah, we don't. That's. I love this. There's the beauty of this schedule is that we have no idea what's actually coming up. So each time we're like, this might happen this time. This might happen, and then the next time when something happens at the end of it, we'll be like, this might happen that time. Definitely
That's
Saturday.
The part about the Versal Plane is it could be anything.
The Versal Plane just happens. You know what?
It'll be really fun if we can get a bunch of campaigns going simultaneously that all technically happen at the same time in the same universe, but are so vastly different that it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah, and then eventually lead up to an Avengers Endgame. Yeah, exactly. Well, I might have to change the intro to say that greetings fellow humanoids, and welcome back to the Versal Plane, where shit happens.
Where chaos ruins continuity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where chaos conflicts with continuity.
That's right. Chaos contradicts continuity. They lead to a block party in the parking lot. So, Teeny, the idea of a block party is that it is a party of characters, or it is a party of creatures with stat blocks rather than character sheets. So it's a block party.
The question is, how do you use skill checks?
Same. I mean, essentially same way, because a lot of most of the characters or most of the creature stat blocks have not necessarily proficiencies, but like it'll say like skill checks, perception, this, and essentially it's the stat block telling you that this creature has proficiency in this thing. But like if it's a sleight of hand check, or if it's a stealth check and it doesn't have stealth as a thing, you just add their dex because essentially
Fair
you're
enough.
treating it
Count
as
as a
they
zero.
don't have proficiency. Huh?
Count it as
What?
a 0. And then
Right,
add your modifier.
right, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then
That's
if it does say the thing, then you'll know if it's proficiency or expertise. It usually
right,
does that
exactly.
for you.
So like I know quicklings have stealth listed there because they have proficiency in it. So their stealth is their dex plus their proficiency. I don't know if they have expertise, but those fuckers are fast.
Now there is a problem. Proficiency is typically
Hi.
based on level.
Oh,
And monsters don't have levels, they have CR ratings, which means that each monster's proficiency bonus is going to be different.
correct. What I've started doing, and welcome everybody to the this is part 2 of 1 of this episode. What I've started doing.
Welcome everybody to a continuation.
That's right. This is the part where the credits are running, but we don't realize it, and we're like we just keep going. But the what I've started doing when I want to sort of get a comparable sense of what a monster is compared to is that I'll create a character sheet that has roughly the same number of hit points. Like I'll basically just bump the level until I have about the same number of hit points, and then be like, okay, this is pretty comparable. Sort of see what else aligns, and then go, okay, this character sheet is a level 5. So this CR monster, this one in particular, is comparable to a level 5 player character.
Fair.
It's not perfect, but it's sort of a rough way to do it.
I did have to look up basically what the proficiency modifier is based on CR rating, and it's almost equal to as if the CR rating was equal to a player level. It's not quite correct, but it's close
Right.
enough.
Yeah.
I was
Also,
looking
we
at
just want
a
chaos.
CR 15 the other day, I think it was, and it was roughly equal to a level 12 character.
So
Right.
what I will say is if you have ever watched the first series of Critical Role and they had the side episode which was all of them just playing goblins going on an adventure, that is the aim of this session.
Yeah. And what's really funny is
I was there for it.
I know that I had an epiphany earlier in this conversation. I don't remember what it was. It was a very, I was like, okay, that's what I have to do. And it's for this game for the 15th. I was like, oh my God, that's perfect. I don't remember what it was. I am going to have to go back and rewatch this or find that part.
You already have to in order to edit it.
Well, I'm not editing. I'm cutting off the first 35 minutes because that was politics. And I'm just going to chop that. I'm actually going to chop it, and I'm going
to have to find the point at which to put the video from RKO Wolf.
Correct, yes. That 35 minutes though, it's not actually 35 minutes because the first 12 was the coming soon screen or the starting soon screen. But I'm going to take those 20
video from the RKO Wolf here again. Just
yeah, correct.
Oh God, oh God.
Yeah. But I'm going to take those 24 minutes and I'm going to post that 24 minutes separately as like a political outtake. Like, this is us talking about shit we shouldn't be talking about. Because content be content.
I'm so sorry. I am so sorry about the thing from Morgan.
This is M's
what we need
fault.
to do is have a session randomly when we're just in the mood to talk politics and call it the politic plane.
Yeah. Yep. Correct. Exactly. Well, this is where we're gonna
politics.
The inversal plane. The yeah.
Yeah.
The inversal plane. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
We're not talking about fantasy worlds here. We're talking about the real one.
No, you know, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna have a session where if we want to talk about politics, we can absolutely talk about politics. But it's going to be a session in which I am not Cap without a country. I am this character, and you are this character, and M is this character, and we're sitting in a tavern in a town in the D&D world, and we're talking about an alternate universe. Could you guys imagine a universe where they have these things called televisions and they transmit minor illusions from one place to another and you can watch things on them? And like, imagine that there was a person who was on a television show and then that person got elected to the highest political position in a country. That'd be crazy.
Oh man,
Imagine in
that's as
that.
bad as when my buddy was running a humans and homeowners campaign, and he brought in this monarch king or whatever he was. I don't know. He was an
Mhm.
asshole. He just kept racking up the taxes in the town, and nothing
Right.
that we did mattered because no matter how many quests we took on, it was just never enough to pay it all.
Yeah, and
We barely were
Humans
able to
and
afford each of the
homeowners. That's
inns.
fucking
I
hilarious.
I remember that one because I remember you guys were telling me the continuity kept changing. Like in one episode or in one session they called him the president, in another session they called him the king, in another session he called himself the king. Then there was one session where he was saying something about wanting to be the pope too, and I was like, dude, you guys can't even keep your continuity straight.
The
What's
worst
a
part is
pope?
his entire Legion of Marquis apparently referred to him as like the reincarnation of the child of one of the deities. It doesn't make any. The
Yeah,
worst
they
part is
thought
most of the people in that game only cared about one deity. Can you imagine that? One deity?
what? They didn't even have a well, they had a pantheon, but none of the other gods had followers. So yeah, they thought that this president, king, pope, this Pope king or whatever they were calling him, they thought he was like the child of a demigod. So he was like a quarter god or like a quasi god or something. Like they
Oh
thought
wait,
he
isn't that
was.
isn't that the thing where you put a bunch of flower petals and like acorns and shit into a bowl?
I
No, that's potpourri.
Ah, gotcha.
oh,
I love how I've taken on the same accent of Tony. I gotcha.
I feel like the moment you
We're
realize
just playing in Jersey.
the moment your brain clicks into conspiracy theory mode, you become a kobold and you sound like Tony.
Oh yeah, it's just three kobolds around a table.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fully yes, 100%. But that's the
Bank accounts
context.
are a scam
It's three
created by the
kobolds
shadow government.
currently in a trench coat arguing with each other.
Oh my god, the tavern is called the Trench Coat. The tavern is called a trench coat. It has to be a trench coat, and we are three kobolds in a trench coat.
Oh, the best part is that the barkeep is actually three goblins stacked on top of each other, and you got
Yeah.
three gnomes over in the corner.
hmm
You got
Wait,
two
if you
halflings because the third one got sick.
I was gonna say, what if you had three halflings? That would be one and a half. So if it's three halflings, they actually impersonate a Goliath because they're
Yeah,
taller. But yeah, that is the meta context
there's
of
like
all
12
political
fairies in one
conversations.
coat.
Oh, that's
There's
just
like
it,
12 fairies in one coat because they were having trouble carrying it.
and that's just a fairy cuddle. That's a fake. That's a Sealy cuddle puddle.
Uh,
There's also a slight
two two
there's a
Kenku walked in and they have no idea what's going on, but we're all eyeing them suspiciously. Last I checked, that's an attempted murder.
I was gonna say two Kenku is an attempted murder. Yeah. Um. If you no,
All,
there's
all
an
these
there,
puns are just to see M laugh.
yeah, there's actually a rated M for mature version of the 12 fairies in a trench coat, in which that's actually a silly orgy. Oh no, it's a silly cuddle puddle. It's an unseelie orgy.
No, but in that mature setting, there is only one restaurant in town. Five Guys.
Correct. Absolutely
uh,
I hate
correct.
you.
I'm gonna take off. This has been great. I loved
Yes.
all of this. We didn't really talk too much about Grimm's Gathering, but there wasn't really that much to talk about. All that really
Mhm.
mattered was it was all a child's imagination of what they
Mhm.
knew from fairy tales, like um
Mhm.
musicals, all the TV shows and stuff from the real world, and one magic artifact, a la Warehouse 13, or Librarians, came around and changed this kid
Mhm.
into accidentally making magic.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's fantastic. What I'll do with this is I'll actually probably end up cutting this. This is about 3.5 hours. I'll probably end up cutting this into three pieces and just make three separate videos out of it.
So we've got politics, rambling. So politics,
Oh,
rambling about campaign creation, and then actually talking about Grimm's Gathering.
correct. And I actually then it'll be 3.5 because politics is the half, and then we'll have like world building, campaign creating, Grimm's Gathering, and then whatever the fuck else was discussed. And Archaeo Wolf. I'm sorry, I will cut out the Archaeo Wolf, whose video will now be put up 3 times.
No,
This one.
don't do this.
This will be the 3rd time. It's the rule
so
of
bad.
it's the comedic rule of 3. I can't just post. I can't put it in
No.
there twice and not pay off the 3rd time.
So
Please,
you've got to
no.
cut the clip shorter and shorter for each time.
And then
First time it's the full thing. The second time it's just the part that sucks. The third time it's just a blip it.
the 3rd time it begins and then it cuts and it's M going no.
Trust me, once you see it, you will understand why.
Yeah. Oh no, it's gonna be great. Fantastic.
All right, you guys have a great rest of your night. I'm gonna see if Defiant Cupcake
You
would like to
too.
play some Repo.
There you go. Sounds good.
There you go.